Chapter 578. Su Hui said, "Grandpa, why don't you publicize this archaeological discovery so that those people of Koryo can shut up?" Lu Qigong said, "Some things are not as simple as you think. In fact, there is a lot of evidence like this in Wuxia, but these archaeological discoveries belong to the country, and the officials of Koryo have not officially said those things. Therefore, the officials of Wuxia naturally can't refute the rumors publicly, and some debates are carried out in private among the people." Qin Haodong nodded and looked at the ancient Wuxia characters on the letter and said, "I didn't expect that a person of Koryo could be so narcissistic. It's really rare." Lu Qigong said, "According to our archaeological and historical research, the person who wrote this letter is called Kim Daejian. He became a diplomatic officer of Koryo by relying on his beautiful Wuxia characters. All the written materials submitted to the Ming dynasty were written by him." Kim Daejian. Qin Haodong was stunned when he heard the name, and then he began to reflect on himself in his heart. "I'm sorry, I'm evil." He asked again, "Grandpa, I still don't understand why there is such a thing as a letter in Wei Zhongxian's tomb." Lu Qigong said, "Now the legends about Wei Zhongxian in Wuxia are all negative. In the eyes of the people, he is a traitor who can't be any worse. However, from a historical point of view, he actually made a lot of contributions to the Ming dynasty, including establishing diplomatic relations with other countries and resisting foreign invasions. He was also a very ambitious person. I reckon that he wanted his descendants to see his achievements, so he deliberately placed this letter in his tomb." The three of them were chatting when the door opened and Su Hongba came in from outside. Su Hui asked, "Grandpa, why did you get off work so late today?" "Don't mention it. I had an emergency meeting all afternoon." Su Hongba said, then grabbed Qin Haodong and said, "Little Qin, come here quickly. I have something to tell you." After that, he took Qin Haodong to another room in a hurry. Lu Qigong said discontentedly, "Old Su, little Qin is discussing ancient culture with me. What's there to discuss about those broken bottles and jars? I have something to do here. Come with me, girl." "Old Lu, don't come and make trouble." Su Hongba took Qin Haodong and Su Hui to another room and closed the door. Qin Haodong asked, "What's the matter, sir?" Su Hongba said, "Something big has happened. The academic exchange group of Koryo Medical College will come to our school tomorrow." Su Hui said, "It's just an exchange group. What's the big deal? Didn't our school often send exchange groups in the past? Do you have to act like you're facing a formidable enemy? This is completely different from before." Su Hongba said solemnly, "This time, although it's a cultural exchange group, it's actually aimed at our school of Chinese medicine and even Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. Because of this, the school is paying so much attention to this matter. Even the Ministry of Health of Wuxia is paying special attention to this matter and repeatedly instructed our school to deal with it well." Qin Haodong said, "Is it that serious?" Su Hongba said, "This time, the exchange group of Koryo is aggressive and ill-intentioned. The leader of their team is Li Minte, a visiting professor of Koryo Medical College. Like you, he is also called the medical sage in Koryo." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "With their little medical skills, they just learned a little from Wuxia. How dare they call themselves medical sages?" Su Hongba said, "That's the problem. These people are not only arrogant but also used to robbing others' things. Li Minte not only calls himself the medical sage, but also often says that traditional Chinese medicine comes from Koryo and was passed on to Wuxia by them." Qin Haodong frowned and said, "These people really have no bottom line. They shout all day long that everything belongs to them. Do they deserve to pass on traditional Chinese medicine to Wuxia?" The dispute between Koryo Medical College and traditional Chinese medicine has been very hot recently, and Li Minte is the main representative of Koryo. Just a few days before he came to Wuxia, he published a related paper. So we guess that Koryo Medical College is likely to take the opportunity to make trouble at this exchange meeting and claim that traditional Chinese medicine comes from Koryo Medical College. We are responsible for receiving them, so if we don't deal with them well, we will be in a very passive position. In addition, in order to expand their influence, Koryo Medical College not only invited many international media, but also invited Miss Alice, the president of the World Medical Association, to participate in this exchange meeting. Because of this exchange meeting is related to the face of traditional Chinese medicine and the whole Wuxia, so the higher-ups attach great importance to it and the college is even more nervous. Qin Haodong said indifferently, in fact, it's not necessary. It belongs to whoever it belongs to. They can't take it away even if they want to. Su Hongba said, with you, the medical sage, I'm confident. But you disappeared for several days in a row, which made me so anxious. I'm afraid that you won't be able to come back tomorrow. I'm telling you, before the medical exchange meeting is over, you can't disappear again. Qin Haodong said, it's about traditional Chinese medicine. I'm duty-bound to do whatever you need me to do. Su Hongba was very satisfied with his attitude and said happily, the basic agenda of the exchange meeting has come out. It is mainly divided into two parts. The first part is academic exchange, and the second part is medical exchange. Each college will send 5 representatives. Out of the 5, the order is 3. 2 structure consisted of 3 students and 2 teachers from the academy. The college entrusted me to be in charge of all the matters of this medical exchange meeting, and Fang Heluan is responsible for assisting me. As for the students, I've already submitted your name. In addition to you, Su Hui and another second-year student will also be participating. Qin Haodong nodded and didn't say anything more. He had enough confidence in Chinese medicine. As long as he was there, those Koreans wouldn't succeed. It didn't matter who else would participate. The 3 of them talked about the details of the exchange meeting again. At this moment, the door opened. Zhu Chunmei said discontentedly at the door, you 2 old men, it's not easy for little Qin to come here. Why don't you let him chat with Hui Hui more? Why do you always interfere? Su Hui blushed and said shyly, Grandma, we're talking about something. Zhu Chunmei said, what are you talking about? Hurry up and eat. Lu Qigong also appeared at the door and said, little Qin, hurry up and eat. Don't talk to that old man. I have a few newly bought antiques later. Help me appreciate them. Zhu Chunmei said discontentedly, no, after dinner, let little Qin and Hui Hui go to a movie. You 2 old men are not allowed to interfere. Qin Haodong was speechless. He had really become the focus of this family. He quickly said, Grandma, hurry up and eat. I've been aroused by the smell of your food. Zhu Chunmei immediately said with a smile, let's eat. I've made a lot of delicious food for you. After sitting at the table, Zhu Chunmei asked Su Hui to sit on the left side of Qin Haodong, and she sat on the right side. She kept putting food into his bowl. Looking at the dishes in the bowl, Qin Haodong was speechless. He thought, it's okay to pick up some food. Why are they all fried kidney? Am I so weak? The most important thing was that although there were many women in the family, he could not touch any of them. Wasn't it torture to eat so much kidney? After dinner, Qin Haodong left Lu Qigong's house. Not long after he went out, the phone in his pocket rang. It was James, a cardiopulmonary expert of the World Medical Association. After the phone was connected, James said respectfully, Dear teacher, how are you recently? I'm fine. What's the matter? James said, Teacher, Miss Alice, the president of the World Medical Association, went to Wuxia today. Qin Haodong said, I heard. James suddenly raised his voice and said discontentedly, Teacher, do you know what? This woman is so hateful. She doesn't believe in the magic of traditional Chinese medicine, your magical medical skills, and everything I said about traditional Chinese medicine. This time she went to Shanghai to participate in a medical exchange meeting. I want her to visit you in Jiangnan after the meeting. At that time, you must show her magical medical skills and make this woman completely shut up. I'm really fed up with her arrogance and her ignorance of traditional Chinese medicine. Qin Haodong smiled and said, "No need, James. I'm in Shanghai now, and tomorrow I will participate in this medical exchange meeting on behalf of the School of Traditional Chinese Medicine of Shanghai Medical College. Dear teacher, what are you going to do in Shanghai? Are you going to be a professor at the School of Traditional Chinese Medicine? Isn't that too unfair for you?" "I'm not a professor, I'm a student." Qin Haodong said, "Don't ask for the specific reason. I have some important things to do here." James said, "Oh. I see, teacher. You must show Alice how magical traditional Chinese medicine is." Qin Haodong ended the call with James, but before he took a few steps, his phone rang again. This time it was Kim Ji-hyun. Now the two of them had a good relationship. He answered the phone and said, "Haven't you left Wuxia yet?" "Not yet. I came to Wuxia on behalf of the Kim Group to participate in the financial summit. I can't go back until the event is completely over." Kim Ji-hyun said, "I heard that you are going to participate in the academic exchange meeting between Shanghai Medical College and Koryo Medical College this time." Qin Haodong didn't expect that Kim Ji-hyun would know as soon as he received the news. He asked in surprise, "How did you know?" Kim Ji-hyun said, "Lee Junki of Koryo Medical College just left my place. His father is Lee Min-tae, the head of the translation delegation. He is also one of the members of this exchange meeting. I saw your name on the list of Shanghai Medical College from him, so I called you." Qin Haodong didn't speak, just listened quietly. He felt that Kim Ji-hyun was not just talking about this matter. There must be something else. Chapter 579. Sure enough, Kim Ji-hyun continued, "Lee Junki told me that they didn't come to Wuxia for a simple medical exchange meeting, but for another purpose. Now that traditional Chinese medicine in Wuxia is declining, they want to take the opportunity to prove that Koryo medicine is better than traditional Chinese medicine, and then prove that traditional Chinese medicine came from Koryo medicine. I know it's wrong for them to say that. Although I don't know anything about medicine, I know that Koryo medicine was learned from Wuxia. What they're doing is completely distorting the truth. I know you hate this practice very much, so I called you." Qin Haodong said, "Thank you for telling me this. It shows that you are a girl with a sense of justice. You don't have to thank me. I didn't help you much." Kim Ji-hyun said, "In fact, most people in our country are like me. They agree with the spread of Wuxia's culture and its help to the development of our country. Only a few ambitious people will jump out to talk nonsense and distort the truth." Qin Haodong said, "I should thank you for thinking of calling me." Kim Ji-hyun said, "In fact, even if I didn't call you, I knew that they wouldn't succeed." "Why?" Qin Haodong was very curious why this girl would have such an idea. Kim Ji-hyun said with a smile, "Because of you. In my heart, you are omnipotent and invincible. With you attending this cultural exchange meeting, they will definitely lose miserably. I will also go to the scene tomorrow and cheer for you." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Are you so confident in me?" "Of course, otherwise why would I want to be your disciple? Unfortunately, you didn't accept me." Kim Ji-hyun was a little depressed, but she soon cheered up and said, "By the way, I heard from Lee Junki that they seem to be writing some articles in the Compendium of Materia Medica. I don't know if this will help you." Compendium of Materia Medica. This is a milestone work in the history of traditional Chinese medicine in Wuxia. What can they do? Kim Ji-hyun said, "I don't know. Lee Junki just mentioned it and didn't say much about the specific content." Qin Haodong asked, "By the way, why did Lee Junki tell you so much?" Kim Ji-hyun paused for a moment and said shyly, "Because he has been pursuing me, but I didn't agree because I think this person is too materialistic." After hanging up the phone, Qin Haodong recalled what Kim Ji-hyun had just said. Now it was basically certain that Koryo came to Shanghai with bad intentions this time. However, after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't figure out how the other party would make a fuss about the compendium of materia medica. The next day, the cultural exchange meeting between Koryo Medical College and Shanghai Medical College's School of Traditional Chinese Medicine officially began, and the location was chosen in the auditorium of the medical college. A platform for the exchange meeting was built in the middle of the auditorium. The platform was surrounded by reporters with cameras. Most of them were from Wuxia, and some were from Koryo and M country. The seats around the auditorium were full of students who came to watch. They were all here to cheer for the medical college. In an office backstage, 2 teachers and 3 students of Shanghai Medical College who were about to participate in the exchange meeting gathered together. When Qin Haodong saw another student who was going to participate in the exchange meeting, he was immediately shocked. He had never expected that the other student would be Feng Wu, the first campus belle of Shanghai Medical College. The moment he saw Feng Wu, he immediately understood why this girl was ranked first. At the same time, he also understood why the Koryo people in the Taekwondo club didn't pursue her even though she was the first campus belle. Because she was so beautiful that people didn't want to get close to her. She was so beautiful that people didn't have the courage to pursue her. In terms of appearance and figure, she was comparable to Nailan Wushuang and the others, but this girl gave people a kind of holiness from the bottom of her heart. If she stood together with Li Jiumei, she would give people a completely different feeling. Li Jiumei's sexiness would make people fantasize about her, while Feng Wu made people unable to have any indecent thoughts. Blasphemy. If it was just her appearance, Qin Haodong would not be so shocked. More importantly, she was an expert at the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. Feng Wu was not very old. She was only 21 or 22 years old. How did she do it? When Qin Zhonghen broke through the bottleneck of the Supreme Power Realm at the age of 18, he was praised as a rare martial arts genius. Yi Qin reached the 6th level of the Supreme Power Realm at the age of 28 with the help of her master. If her cultivation was completely based on cultivation, then her aptitude was too amazing, wasn't it? As a Supreme Power Master at the 8th level, Feng Wu immediately noticed Qin Haodong's gaze on her, but she didn't know that her cultivation had been seen through. She thought that he was just shocked by her appearance like ordinary people, so she didn't care at all. Su Hongba introduced them to each other and briefly told them about the matters to pay attention to in the exchange meeting. Then they walked to the front desk together. When they went to the stage, the 5 members of the delegation of Koryo were already in place. They sat there according to the seats prepared in advance. The leader was an arrogant old man who looked about 60 years old. He was the head of the delegation of Koryo, a visiting professor of Koryo Medical College, and also known as the medical sage, Li Minte. Next to him was a young man in his 30s. He was his son, Li Zhongqi. He was known as the medical sage in Koryo and also taught at Koryo Medical College. Next to the father and son sat 3 students of Koryo Medical College. In the middle was a very beautiful girl. According to Kim Ji-hyun, this girl was called Kim Siyuan, a famous medical genius in Koryo Medical College. It was rumored that her medical skills were even better than that of the young doctor, Li Zhongqi. There were also 2 male students, Lin Yongzheng and Song Dongshu. However, compared with the dazzling Kim Siyuan, the 2 of them seemed a little dull. On such a small stage, the 3 top beauties, Feng Wu, Kim Siyuan, and Su Hui, immediately made the male students watching on both sides excited. Originally, they just came to cheer for their college, but they didn't expect to have such an unexpected harvest. All of them suddenly felt as if they had been injected with chicken blood and were extremely excited. At this moment, the principal, Ho Wenbin, led a beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes to the stage. This woman was tall and about 180 meters tall, about the same height as Ho Wenbin. The most outstanding thing about her was her sexy figure. European women still had a unique advantage in this aspect. 2 towering peaks almost broke through the restraint of the bra. The miniskirt seemed to be unable to wrap around the perky buttocks. With the two long legs as a foil, they were incomparably eye-catching when they walked. After getting on the stage, Ho Wenbin introduced her to everyone. "This is Miss Alice, the president of the World Medical Association. This time, she specially came to Wuxia to be a guest of our medical exchange. Please applaud and welcome her." After a warm applause, Alice said to the people of Shanghai Medical College and Koryo Medical College, "I'm very curious about traditional Chinese medicine and Koryo medicine. This time, I want to deepen my understanding of these two medical skills through your cultural exchange. Also, if there's anything you need me to do, just let me know." After that, she looked at the people of Shanghai Medical College and finally fixed her eyes on Qin Haodong. She said, "You must be Qin Haodong, who is known as the medical sage of Wuxia. I'm glad to see you here. James just called me and said that you would attend today's cultural exchange. I want to see how amazing your medical skills are." Alice added the word, medical sage, in front of the medical sage of Wuxia, which was obviously provocative. It seemed that as James had said, the president of the World Medical Association did not agree with traditional Chinese medicine, nor did she agree with him, the medical sage. Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Miss Alice, welcome to Wuxia. I believe you won't be disappointed." After hearing the conversation between the two of them, the audience in the stands burst into an uproar. They had also realized that Qin Haodong's name was the same as the medical sage's, but they just thought it was just the same name. Who would have thought that the medical sage would come to the medical college as a freshman? Now it seemed that Qin Haodong was the famous medical sage in the field of traditional Chinese medicine. As for why he came to Shanghai Medical College, it was no longer important. What everyone was interested in was what kind of performance this medical sage would bring to them next. Whether he was worthy of his reputation or not, they would know after seeing him. Li Mingtai snorted coldly. Obviously, he was extremely dissatisfied with the title of medical sage of Qin Haodong. He said to Alice, "President, we invited you to be a guest this time because we want you to be a witness. When we exchange medical skills later, we need you to be a judge." Before the exchange began, his words were already full of gunpowder. In fact, everyone knew in their hearts that the so-called exchange was more like a challenge. Alice said with a smile, "I'm willing to serve you. I can't wait." After arranging for her to sit in the guest seat, Ho Wenbin stepped down from the stage. The exchange officially began, and the cameras under the stage were all aimed at the people on the stage. Li Mingtai glanced at the representatives of Shanghai Medical College, sneered, and then said, "In fact, I only want to elaborate on one topic in this cultural exchange. Just like the paper I published a few days ago, I think that Koryo medicine is broad and profound. Chinese medicine in Wuxia was originally a branch of Koryo medicine. I don't know what the teachers and students here think." The students watching did not know the real purpose of the delegation of Koryo medicine this time. After hearing Li Mingtai's words, they immediately became excited. If it weren't for the teachers at the scene to maintain order, there would have been a riot immediately. Ridiculous. The first to respond was another leading teacher of Shanghai Medical College, another professor of the School of Chinese Medicine, Fang Heluan, who was as famous as Su Hongbo. He said angrily, "Chinese medicine belongs to Wuxia people. How can your small Koryo medicine be compared to it?" Chapter 580. Fang Heluan's temper was obviously more irritable. At this moment, he was so angry that his beard was twitching and his breathing was much heavier. Even his hands were trembling. Li Mingtai sneered and said, "Teacher, we are having an academic exchange today, not shouting slogans or bickering. If you want to refute my point of view, you can give me your evidence." Fang Heluan forced himself to calm down and said, "Chinese medicine has a history of thousands of years in Wuxia. Since the birth of the Wuxia people, Chinese medicine has been around. Chinese medicine was born in primitive society. During the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period, the theory of Chinese medicine had basically taken shape. As a professor of traditional Chinese medicine, Fang Heluan's knowledge was very profound. From the birth of traditional Chinese medicine to the present, he talked incessantly, quoting classics and quoting classics. When he finished, the audience applauded warmly. However, Li Mingtai shook his head and said, "You've been talking nonsense for a long time. There's nothing substantial. You said that Wuxia culture has been around for 5,000 years, but I can say that Koryo culture has been around for 6,000 years. These empty words are useless. You claim that TKM originated from TCM, but what proof do you have?" Fong Heluan blushed and said, "Do we still need evidence? Everyone in Wuxia knows it." After he said this, Alice, who was next to him, giggled. After laughing, she shook her head, obviously disagreeing with this statement. In the Western philosophy, everything had to be based on evidence. It was difficult for her to agree with a viewpoint without evidence as a basis. In contrast, Su Hongbo was much calmer. He looked at Li Mingtai and said, "Professor Li, you just said that Chinese medicine came from Koryo medicine. What evidence do you have?" Li Mingtai said, "Of course I have evidence. Among the Chinese medicine practitioners in Wuxia, Li Shizhen is a sage, but Li Shizhen is from Koryo. This is my evidence." "Bullshit, Li Shizhen is a Wuxia man. When did he become a Koryo man? You're so shameless. Why don't you say that the whole world belongs to you? Li Shizhen is from Wuxia, and the Compendium of Materia Medica is also from Wuxia. It has nothing to do with you." The audience on the stage was agitated, and they all condemned Li Mingtai. But the old guy seemed to have expected the situation in front of him. He was not moved at all and looked at Su Hongbo with a sneer. Su Hongbo suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "Professor Li, you can't say that. Li Shizhen is a Wuxia man. When did he become a Koryo man? Li Shizhen was originally from Koryo. Later, he came to Hubei of Wuxia to spread the culture and stayed for a period of time. He taught you a lot of medical things." Su Hongbo said, "Professor Li, you just said that everything needs evidence. You said that Li Shizhen is from Koryo. What evidence do you have?" "Of course I have evidence." Li Mingtai said proudly, "The surname Li is a big surname in our country, so Li Shizhen is from our country. Our Li family is the descendant of Li Shizhen, and it's precisely because of our medical inheritance and outstanding genes that our Li family's descendants have such outstanding achievements in the medical field," holding up the banner of TKM. "A bunch of nonsense. This is utter nonsense." Zhang Heluan, who had a bad temper, almost jumped up in anger. Su Hongbo was also so angry that his face turned red. Although he was mentally prepared in advance, he did not expect that Li Mingtai would use this as a reason. Qin Haodong was also shocked by this magical theory. Yesterday, he heard from Kim Ji-hyun that the delegation of Koryo was going to make a fuss about Li Shizhen, but he did not expect that it would be like this. He really didn't know what these people of Koryo were thinking. Last night, he saw a well-known scholar of Koryo put forward 3 pieces of evidence to prove that Confucius was from Koryo. The first piece of evidence was that people of Koryo believed that Jizi in the Shang dynasty was the ancestor of Koryo. Jizi was from Shandong, and Confucius was also from Shandong, so Confucius was from Koryo. The second piece of evidence was that people of Koryo often worshipped Confucius, so Confucius was from Koryo. The third piece of evidence was even more absurd. They even made up a Tanjun who had lived for 1908 years. It was said that this magical figure had conquered the entire central plains of Wuxia, so Confucius was from Koryo. Last night, he was shocked by these 3 pieces of evidence. He did not expect that Li Mingtai would give such a shocking statement now. He said, "You said that Li is from Koryo?" Since it was a cultural exchange, students were allowed to speak. Li Mingtai glanced at Qin Haodong and said proudly, "Of course, Li Shizhen's surname is Li, so he is the ancestor of our Li family." Qin Haodong said, "Then there is another famous person in the history of Wuxia. His name is Li Lianying. Why don't you say that he is the ancestor of your family? As long as his surname is Li, he is the ancestor of our Li family. The one who spoke was Li Minti's son, Li Zhongqi. This guy obviously did not know much about the history of Huaxia. He thought that as long as it was a famous person, it would be right. But after he finished speaking, he found that the audience, who had been excited, suddenly burst into laughter. Some people even laughed so hard that they could not stand up straight. Even Feng Wu's holy face showed a smile. He realized that he had said something wrong. He turned to look at his father and asked in a low voice, "Father, did I say something wrong? Who is Li Lianying?" "Shut up." Li Minte was so angry that his face turned livid. He wanted to strangle his brainless son. He often studied the history of Huaxia, so he naturally knew that Li Lianying was the most famous eunuch. How could a eunuch be the ancestor of the Li family? He turned around and said angrily to Qin Haodong, "What you said is an insult to our Li family." Qin Haodong said unhurriedly, "But you just said that Li Shizhen is the ancestor of the Li family, which is also an insult to Li Shizhen." After he finished speaking, there was another round of warm applause. Ji Fubao and Tian Buguang began to cheer in the front row. Their boss was still the best. He turned the passive situation around and helped them vent their anger. Li Minte said angrily, "Li Shizhen is the ancestor of our Li family. There is evidence." After that, he waved his hand to the audience and said, "Bring the evidence up." Below the stage, a man from Koryo handed him a beautifully packaged brocade box. The scene immediately quieted down. Everyone's eyes were focused on the brocade box. They didn't know what was inside. What could prove that Li Shizhen was from Koryo? Li Minte opened the brocade box and carefully took out a simple thread-bound book from it. "Look, this is my evidence." Qin Haodong and the others looked at the book. There were 4 simple ancient Huaxia characters. Su Hongbo said, "This is our Huaxia book." "What can it prove?" "Your Huaxia book." "Then why is it in my hands?" A sarcastic smile appeared on Li Minti's face and he said, "Li Shizhen was originally from Koryo. During the Ming dynasty, he came to Huaxia to spread medical skills. He deliberately brought this book to Huaxia, and this is the original copy of our country." Fang Heluan said, "Nonsense. This book was passed from our country to your country. How could it become your book?" Su Hongbo said, "Professor Li, can you lend me this book?" "Yes, but it's hard to find the only copy. You must be careful not to damage it." As Li Minte spoke, he carefully handed the compendium of Materia Medica to Sun Hongbo. Su Hongbo gently opened the book and saw that there were ancient Huaxia characters on the yellowish pages. "Professor Li, you said that this book was produced in your country. Then why are all the ancient Huaxia characters used in it? Doesn't it mean that this book was passed from Huaxia to your country?" Li Minte seemed to have been prepared. He shook his head and said, "There have been many capable people in our country since ancient times. It's normal for a few of them to be proficient in ancient Huaxia characters. This book is used to spread medical skills to Huaxia. Is it strange that it was translated into Huaxia characters?" Su Hongbo was speechless for a while in the face of such a rogue. Su Hui said, "This is no great evidence. Huaxia also has it. How can it prove that it is from your country?" Li Minte seemed to be waiting for this question. He said proudly, "Your book is different from this one. This is the original copy." After being identified by our country's archaeologist, Mr. Cho Hongxiang, this book is an antique. It was produced in the 15th century, which is the middle and late period of your Ming dynasty. Now this ancient book is in our country, which proves that it came from our country. Li Shizhen happens to be from our country, so he knows that traditional Chinese medicine is also from our country. If you don't accept it, you can take out the one from the same period. Of course, it has to be identified by Mr. Cho Hongxiang. After he finished speaking, everyone was silent. Although Li Minti's point of view was still absurd, it was much more logical than before. The most important thing was that after the war in the later period, although it was barely passed down, it was all hand-copied or replicas in the later period. There was no original copy from the Ming dynasty. Su Hongba and Fang Heluan looked at each other and saw the complicated expressions in each other's eyes. There was nervousness, helplessness, and even a trace of embarrassment. Although they had made sufficient mental preparations before, Li Minti's move was still beyond their expectations. Although everyone knew that it belonged to Wuxia, the original copy was in Li Minti's hands. Moreover, it had been 500 or 600 years. There was no evidence to investigate this kind of unsettled case. How could they explain it clearly? Looking at the camera hanging in front of him, Su Hongba became more and more nervous. He couldn't solve this dilemma, so he could only look at Qin Haodong for help. He didn't know if this young man, who was known as the medical sage, would have a way to deal with it. Please bookmark this site to read the latest news. Chapter 581. Qin Haodong had already read through the compendium of Materia Medica in front of him. There was rich spiritual qi on it. Even if it was not the original copy of the compendium of Materia Medica, it was from the era of the Ming dynasty. However, for some reason, it ended up in Koryo and finally fell into the hands of Li Minte. It was no different from a hooligan who took other people's things and said it was his own. But he had traveled in the cultivation world for 500 years. He had seen all kinds of things, and what kind of hooligans had he not met? He could be reasonable, but he had 100 ways to deal with Emperor Greenwood's hooliganism. He signaled Su Hongba with his eyes not to be nervous, and then said to Li Minte, "This is indeed the original copy of the compendium of Materia Medica, but it belongs to Wuxia and has nothing to do with your country." Li Junqi had just been fooled by him, and now he finally seized the opportunity to take revenge. He shouted, "It's in our hands. Why do you say it belongs to you?" Qin Haodong said, "Because you borrowed it from Wuxia." Ha 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 ha. Li Junqi laughed arrogantly and said, "Borrowed it? Why don't you say that we stole it?" Su Hongba and Zhang Heluan also showed puzzled expressions. They didn't know what Qin Haodong was going to do. It was obvious that these people had come to play hooligans. How could they admit that they had borrowed it? All the audience present fixed their eyes on the handsome young man's face, waiting to see how he would give an answer. "There's no evidence for stealing, but there's an IOU for borrowing." Qin Haodong said, "Just last night, I saw the IOU for borrowing this compendium of Materia Medica from the Great Ming dynasty." As soon as he said this, the audience immediately became restless. Really? Was this book really borrowed from Wuxia? Since the medical sage said it, he should have his reasons. I choose to believe him. These people are so hateful. They obviously borrowed it from us, but they said it was their own. They didn't expect that Wuxia still has an IOU, did they? Li Junqi's expression changed greatly and he shouted, "That's impossible. How can there be an IOU for something hundreds of years?" Qin Haodong sneered and said, "The things you borrowed have been intact for hundreds of years. Are you allowed to borrow things without returning them? Are we not allowed to keep the IOUs?" Li Junqi still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Li Minte. He turned to look at Qin Haodong and asked solemnly, "You said you saw the IOU of the compendium of Materia Medica?" Qin Haodong said, "Of course. Not only is there an IOU from the compendium of Materia Medica, but there is also a letter from Koryo to Wuxia, begging the celestial empire of Wuxia to help your small states and relieve the pain of your people." Hearing the sarcasm in Qin Haodong's words, Li Minte's expression changed drastically. "That's impossible. Show me the evidence." Of course there is evidence. Su Hui's grandfather is an archaeology professor in the Department of History of Shanghai University. I saw this IOU from him. Qin Haodong stared at him with burning eyes and said, "If I take out the receipt, should you return what you borrowed?" After he finished speaking, everyone's eyes fell on Li Minte's face, and thousands of spectators immediately shouted excitedly, "Return it! Return it!" Facing such strong pressure of public opinion and the camera in front of him, Li Mingte finally felt a little embarrassed. He said, "If you can take out the IOU, we will naturally return it, but your IOU must be examined by Mr. Choi Hongxiang to confirm that it is real." The reason why he said this was that, on the one hand, he was under the pressure of public opinion. On the other hand, he did not believe that Qin Haodong could really take out the IOU. "Well, wait a moment. We'll be back soon." Qin Haodong took Su Hui's hand and left the venue. Therefore, because of the IOU, the exchange meeting was suspended. However, no one left. They were all looking forward to when Qin Haodong could get back the IOU of the Compendium of Materia Medica. After going out of the door, Su Hui took Qin Haodong's hand and asked, "When did you see the IOU in my grandfather's house? Why didn't I see it?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "There's no such thing. I didn't see it anywhere." "How can this be?" Su Hui said nervously, "Do you know that it was broadcast live in front of all the people in Wuxia? Even Koryo was broadcasting it. What if you can't take out the IOU? Are you going to admit that the Compendium of Materia Medica is theirs? Li Shizhen is theirs? Traditional Chinese medicine is theirs?" Qin Haodong pulled Su Hui into the car. The original Mercedes-Benz SUV had been destroyed by the explosion. This was a new car chosen from the Zheng family, a top-grade Land Rover. As he drove, he said, "Don't worry, it's not a big deal. If you don't have an IOU, just make one. These people obviously came to our territory to play hooligans. Since they are hooligans, we should be more hooligans than them." Su Hui said anxiously, "But the IOU they want is an antique. How can it be so easy to make? Even if you can imitate it, they have antique appraisal experts over there. It's easy to recognize it." Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Don't worry. I can still do such a small thing. I'm sure they won't find out." But, Su Hui was still a little worried. Qin Haodong said, "Don't say, but now. Do you have a better way?" "No," Su Hui didn't say anything. She thought of the scene just now. If Qin Haodong hadn't used this method, he wouldn't have been able to deal with Li Mingte's provocation. "Since there's no other way, trust me. I won't let you down." Lu Qigong's home was not far from the Shanghai Medical College. With Qin Haodong's proficient driving skills, they arrived at his home in less than 5 minutes. After they entered the house, Lu Qigong happened to be resting at home. He was practicing calligraphy in the study. When he saw the two of them, he said, "Isn't today the day of the cultural exchange meeting? Why are you two here?" Qin Haodong briefly told him what had happened and then said, "Mr. Lu, lend me your pen and ink. I'll make an IOU." Turning around, he said to Su Hui, "Go find a carrot, then turn on the computer and find the picture of yesterday's letter of credence. I'll see what the seal of the King of Koryo looks like and then make one according to it." At this point, Su Hui could only cooperate unconditionally. She rushed into the kitchen and grabbed a big carrot from Zhu Dongmei's hand, which was about to be cut. After hearing what he said, Lu Qigong opened his mouth wide for a long time. When he saw Qin Haodong spread out the paper, he came to his senses and said, "You kid, you're making trouble. Antiques are historical. How can they be forged so easily?" Apart from other things, all the credence letters of that period were written by Pu Dejian. His handwriting is unique. Can you learn it? As he spoke, he anxiously paced back and forth on the ground. How about this? After all, this old man has been immersed in calligraphy for 40 to 50 years. I can barely learn Pu Dejian's calligraphy. I'll write this note for you. Whether you can get away with it or not will depend on your luck. But when he turned around, he suddenly stood there in a daze, as if he had been frozen. He saw Qin Haodong put the brush in his hand aside, and a piece of calligraphy had been written. Although the ink on the paper was not dry, each of the words was vigorous and vigorous. The most important thing was that it was exactly the same as what Pu Dejian had written. If there were no one else in the room, he would have thought that Pu Dejian had been reborn. Qin Haodong pointed to the receipt that had just been written on the table and said, "Sir, what do you think of my handwriting?" "That's great. That's great. It's so good. It's so fake." "No, no. It can't be called fake at all. It's exactly the same as what Pu Dagan wrote." Lu Qigong looked at the words in front of him and asked in amazement, "Little Qin, how did you do it?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "It's nothing. I've sold calligraphy and paintings of scholars for a few years. When I'm free, I'll write one." "Amazing, you're really amazing." Lu Qigong looked at this piece of calligraphy and was amazed. He had been immersed in calligraphy for decades, but he could never reach Qin Haodong's level. He was far from it. Not only him, but probably no one in Wuxia could imitate Pu Dejian's handwriting to this extent. The most important thing was that it only took Qin Haodong 1 or 2 minutes to do it. "Here comes the radish." At this time, Su Hui came in with a big red radish. Qin Haodong took the radish and raised his hand to pick up the fruit knife next to him. He glanced at the photo of the letter of credence on the computer screen and turned his wrist. The fruit knife flew up and down, and it took him less than a minute to carve a seal. He took the big seal carved by the radish, dipped it on the stamp table next to him, and then printed it on the lower corner of the receipt. "It's done." Lu Qigong craned his neck to take a look and was once again dumbfounded. He was an expert in archaeology and had amazing eyesight. If he hadn't seen the big seal carved by Qin Haodong with the radish, he would have thought that it was the seal of the Koryo nation. He was unwilling to give up, so he took the magnifying glass next to him. The result was still the same. Except that the ink was not dry, he couldn't find any flaws. He felt that he was about to collapse. He asked with a stiff expression, "Little Qin, how did you do it?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "It's nothing. I learned cooking for a few years in my spare time. I'm good at carving." Su Hui also sighed and said, "I'm really curious. Is there anything you can't do?" "Yes." Qin Haodong said thoughtfully, "It seems that I can't do things like giving birth." Su Hui glared at him coquettishly and said, "You're not serious." Lu Qigong came to his senses and said, "Little Qin, although your calligraphy is flawless and the seal is perfect, it's fake after all." Chapter 582. Su Hui also looked at Qin Haodong, and there was worry on her smiling face. Everything was so perfect, but a fake was a fake after all, and it couldn't be compared with the real thing in any case. "It's nothing. I just need to deal with it." Qin Haodong took the written receipt and rolled it into a scroll. He filled his palm with green with genuine qi and gently wiped it. When he opened it again, everything changed. The xian paper, which was as white as snow just a moment ago, had become extremely dim, as if it had been eroded by countless years. The words and seals on the xian paper had also become dull, without any new marks. The entire scroll seemed to exude a simple and unadorned aura. "It's done this time. What do you think, Mr. Qin?" Qin Haodong said and put the receipt in front of Lu Qigong again. At this time, Lu Qigong's face was dull, his lips were trembling, and his outstretched hands were also trembling. He took the scroll that Qin Haodong had just made in his hand and looked at the note in front of him. His eyes were filled with shock, extreme shock. He was an authority in the Department of Archaeology and an expert in this field all over the country. The letter that had just been taken out of Wei Zhongxian's tomb was personally identified by him. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find any flaws in the fake that Qin Haodong had just made. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have really thought that it was an antique that had been excavated from the tomb. Qin Haodong didn't stay idle. When Lu Qigong was shocked, he made another letter from Koryo to the Ming dynasty. The two things were more convincing when they were put together. When he was done, Lu Qigong came back to his senses from the shock. Looking back at the handsome young man, he felt that his outlook on life had collapsed. What kind of genius was he? He couldn't find any flaws in the antique that he made casually. Little Qin, how did you do it? Lu Qigong asked this somewhat naive question again. Qin Haodong said with a smile, haven't you seen it? The handwriting is good, the carrot is good, and I've been selling fake antiques for several years. That's it. Lu Qigong couldn't help asking, what the hell do you do? Aren't you a doctor? Why have you been doing everything for several years? Being a doctor is my main job, and other things are my hobbies. Qin Haodong said with a smile, well, the old man is still waiting for us. We have to go back as soon as possible. Wait a minute, I'll go with you and have a look. Lu Qigong followed them into the car. He was curious to see how Qin Haodong would play tricks on these Koryo people. When the three of them reappeared in the auditorium of the Shanghai Medical College, the audience immediately became restless. Everyone's eyes fell on the two scrolls in Qin Haodong's hands. Seeing that Qin Haodong was really holding something in his hand, Li Mingtai immediately became nervous. Could it be that what this young man said was true? Did Koryo really give the Ming dynasty an IOU? Qin Haodong's thought. Li Junqi said in a low voice, Father, I guess the thing in this kid's hand must be fake. Fortunately, we brought Mr. Cho Hong Song, an antique appraisal expert. He will definitely see through this kid's trick. Li Mingtai nodded. In order to prove that his compendium of Materia Medica was authentic at the cultural exchange meeting, he specially invited Choi Hongxiang, an authoritative figure in antique appraisal in Koryo. As soon as the father and son said this, Cui Hongcheng, who was sitting in the audience, stood up and quickly walked up to Qin Haodong. He said respectfully to the old man beside him, Teacher, why are you here? When they got outside, Lu Qigong was still an expert. He nodded slightly and said, It's okay. I just came to have a look. It turned out that Cho Hongxiang used to be a graduate student at Shanghai University and a student of Lu Qigong. 80% of his antique appraisal skills were learned from him. Li Jungxiang said, What's going on? How does Mr. Cho know that old man? Li Mingtai said, Don't worry about it. Mr. Cho Hongxiang has always been known for his fairness. Even we can't affect the result of his appraisal. Lu Qigong thought for a moment and said to Cho Hongxiang, Come with us. We may need your appraisal later. He knew that Koryo would not easily believe Qin Haodong's words, so they would definitely appraise this IOU. The four of them went on the stage together. Qin Haodong said to Li Mingtai, I've brought it. Turning around, he said to Alice, President Alice, please be a witness. Su Hongba and Fang Heluan also looked at Qin Haodong's hand. They looked nervous, worried, and excited. After that, he put the scroll in his hand on the table and slowly opened it. The cameraman who was doing the live broadcast next to him quickly turned the camera around, for fear of missing a single detail. After unfolding the scroll, Qin Haodong said, This is the letter from your country to the Ming dynasty. Professor Li, with your research on the compendium of Materia Medica, you should know these ancient Wuxia characters, right? Li Mingtai looked at the scroll with a serious expression. He was indeed proficient in ancient Wuxia characters, so he soon understood the content. The general idea was that the medical skills of Koryo were backward. They begged the Ming dynasty to lend them medical works such as the compendium of Materia Medica to help the people of Koryo relieve their pain. If this letter was true, it meant two things. First, Koryo was a dependent country of the Ming dynasty. Second, they borrowed the compendium of Materia Medica from Wuxia. Qin Haodong opened the second scroll and said, Look at it again. This is the IOU for borrowing the compendium of Materia Medica. Li Mingtai looked over. It was indeed a IOU, indicating that Koryo had borrowed the compendium of Materia Medica and other medical works of the Ming dynasty. This can't be true. As a doctor, he knew very well who the compendium of Materia Medica belonged to, but he was sure that Huaxia would not leave any relevant evidence. There was no way to prove that the compendium of Materia Medica came from Huaxia. He never dreamed that this young man would make an IOU. Qin Haodong said unhurriedly, "Professor Li, didn't you bring an expert here? You can ask him to identify it." Li Mingtai turned to look at Choi Hongxiang and said, "Mr. Choi, this thing must be fake. Please identify it." Choi Hongxiang said, "I can identify antiques, but I'm only responsible for the identification. I won't participate in your debate. And before I give you the result, please don't jump to conclusions." Li Mingtai smiled awkwardly. This stubborn guy didn't save him any face in front of so many people. "Mr. Choi, you're right. Whether it's true or not, it depends on your identification results." Choi Hongxiang nodded and turned to Lu Qigong and said, "Teacher, why don't you come with me?" Lu Qigong shook his head and said, "This is a Huaxia thing, and it's also my collection. It's not convenient for me to identify it. It's better for you to do it. Teacher, your character is my role model. I've been working hard to learn from you all these years." Then Choi Hongxiang took out the white gloves, magnifying glass and other tools he carried with him and began to identify it. Lu Qigong had a good reputation in the field of antique identification. He was fair and did not show favoritism. Choi Hongxiang had inherited this quality in Koryo. He was meticulous in the identification of antiques and would not let any reason affect his conclusion. Even if it was Lu Qigong's collection, if he thought it was fake, he would point it out in public without any hesitation. He came to the two scrolls and began to look at them carefully. When he saw the handwriting on the scrolls, he immediately exclaimed, "My God, this is the authentic work of Mr. Pu Daegun." Li Mingtai had a bad feeling and asked, "Mr. Choi, are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure." Choi Hongxiang said solemnly, "Mr. Pu Daegun is a master of calligraphy in our country. I've taken him as my idol since I was a child. I've studied his calligraphy for many years. His calligraphy is not only strong and powerful, but also light and elegant. It's very spiritual and unique. I believe that no one else in the world can write this kind of calligraphy. There is a painting of Mr. Pu Daegun hanging in my room, which is exactly the same as the words on it. I'm sure that this is definitely the authentic work of Mr. Pu Daegun. No one else can copy it." Cough. 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 Lu Qigong coughed violently and almost choked to death by his own saliva. If his students knew that Qin Haodong had only spent a few minutes to write this piece of calligraphy, what would they think? Choi Hongxiang turned to look at him and asked, "Teacher, is there anything wrong with what I said?" "Yes. Yes. Yes. You're right. I've just caught a cold these days and coughed a little." Although Lu Qigong was a fair person, the compendium of Materia Medica originally belonged to Huaxia. Of course, he would not be so stubborn. Otherwise, he would not have followed them. After getting his teacher's affirmation, Choi Hongxiang was excited and continued to identify it. When he saw the seal below, he exclaimed again, "This is the national seal of Koryo." In ancient times, only very important documents were used. I can guarantee with my head that this is absolutely authentic. Cough. 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 Lu Qigong coughed violently again. His disciple really dared to say anything. He even put his head on the seal that was dug out by a big radish. This time, even Su Hui, who had always been quiet, showed a smile on her face. If it weren't for the fact that her grandfather couldn't identify it, she would really think that the antique appraisal expert of Koryo was a fake. But now it seemed that it was obviously not true. It could only show that Qin Haodong's technique was so brilliant that it was almost to the realm of passing off the fake as the real one. He used a radish to deceive the two experts of Huaxia and Koryo. Of course, Choi Hongxiang didn't know this. He turned his head and said, "Teacher, I know you are very dedicated, but you must pay more attention to your health." "I will." Lu Qigong covered his mouth and said. Choi Hongxiang turned around and carefully identified the two scrolls again. After a full 10 minutes, he raised his head and said, "My appraisal results are out." Chapter 583. Hearing the result of the appraisal, everyone's eyes were focused on Choi Hongxiang. Many people present were nervous. They didn't know if the appraiser brought by Koryo would be partial to their own people. Choi Hongxiang didn't care about this and continued, "Mr. Daejian is the most famous diplomat in our country more than 500 years ago. He has superb calligraphy, which can be said to be his own style. After my appraisal just now, this letter and this IOU were both written by Mr. Daejian, and they are also stamped with the seal of our country's king. In addition to these 2 points, these 2 scrolls are antique and the traces of carving are obvious. I'm sure that they are antiques from more than 500 years ago. In conclusion, I'm sure that this letter and this IOU are authentic." Cough. 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 Lu Qigong coughed even more violently this time. Antiques from more than 500 years ago were obviously made by Qin Haodong in less than 5 minutes. However, he didn't dare to tell his apprentice about this in his life. Otherwise, it might completely destroy Choi Hongxiang's belief in antique appraisal. After hearing this result, the audience in the whole venue cheered. They didn't expect that Qin Haodong would really take out the IOU of the Compendium of Materia Medica. Now they could return it to its original owner. Li Mingtai looked incredulous and said with a pale face, "Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Mr. Choi, did you see it wrong?" Choi Hongxiang's face darkened and he said in a cold voice, "Professor Li, you can deny it. You can refuse to return the Compendium of Materia Medica, but you can't insult my profession and my appraisal results. I can guarantee with my identity as an appraiser that these 2 things are authentic. As for whether you will return the Compendium of Materia Medica or not, that's a matter of your personal credit." Qin Haodong was overjoyed. This guy was really interesting. Not only did he give him the result he wanted, but he also helped him. Now, under the watchful eyes of the public, he was afraid that Li Mingtai couldn't go back on his word even if he wanted to. Su Hui's face was strange. In her opinion, Qin Haodong had conquered this man with a carrot. "Don't deny it. You have to return the things you borrowed. Hurry up and return the Compendium of Materia Medica to us. Your appraiser said that the IOU is authentic. What reason do you have not to return it? Li, do you want to go back on your word in front of the whole world?" Li Mingtai looked at the excited audience, looked at Alice, whose eyes were shining next to him, and then looked at the camera above his head. Although he was extremely reluctant to return the Compendium of Materia Medica, he was finally under pressure and said with difficulty, "I repeat what I said. This Compendium of Materia Medica will be returned to Wuxia." After that, he reluctantly pushed the Compendium of Materia Medica to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong took the ancient book and handed it to Lu Qigong. "Old master, please hand it to the country for me." Lu Qigong held the original copy of the Compendium of Materia Medica and said excitedly, "Little Qin, I thank you on behalf of all the Wuxia people." He knew the value of this book. If it was taken to the auction, it could be sold for at least hundreds of millions or even billions. It was really commendable that Qin Haodong could return such a valuable thing to the country without hesitation. "Hooray, our things are finally back, good job. The holy doctor is a good man. The Compendium of Materia Medica belongs to Wuxia. Li Shizhen belongs to Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. It belongs to Wuxia." Seeing that the treasure that had been passed down in his family for many generations was taken away just like that, Li Mingtai's face was pale and his heart was bleeding. He had thought that his strategy was foolproof, but he didn't expect that it would be easily destroyed by the young man in front of him, and he even lost the original copy of the Compendium of Materia Medica. Qin Haodong looked at him and said with a smile, "Professor Li, since the book has been returned, this receipt is yours. Take it away. This is an old object from 500 or 600 years ago. If you take it out to auction, you can sell it for a lot of money. Looking at the two scrolls in front of him, Li Mingtai didn't know what to feel in his heart. This was a mockery of him and the entire Koryo. If this thing was spread out, it could only prove that Koryo used to be a vassal of Wuxia, and Koryo medicine originated from Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. Therefore, no matter what, he would not take these two things out to auction. After the appraisal, Lu Qigong and Choi Hongxiang walked off the stage together and sat in the audience seat next to them. The debate on the stage continued. As the leading teacher and the person in charge today, Su Hongbo was beaming with joy at this time. He was extremely proud. Fortunately, he had the foresight to bring the medical sage to this exchange meeting today. Otherwise, this big trouble would be really difficult to solve. Maybe he would lose face in front of the whole world. He looked at Li Mingtai with a smile and said, "Professor Li, now the truth is out. The Compendium of Materia Medica belongs to Wuxia, and Li Shizhen also belongs to Wuxia. From this, it seems that traditional Chinese medicine was also spread from Wuxia to Koryo. What else do you have to say?" Li Mingtai had calmed down at this time. After all, the debate had just begun, and he still had other trump cards that he hadn't used yet. "Professor Su, it's just a book. It can't explain so many things." Su Hongbo said, "Do you have other evidence to prove that traditional Chinese medicine came from Koryo?" "Of course." Li Mingtai said plausibly, "Whether it's traditional Chinese medicine or Koryo medicine, it's all about acupuncture." Among these four words, needle ranks first, which shows the importance of acupuncture. "And now I can prove that acupuncture came from our country." Su Hongbo frowned. As everyone knew, acupuncture was a part of traditional Chinese medicine. How could it be from Koryo? He said, "Professor Li, you can't talk nonsense. What evidence do you have?" "Of course I have evidence." Li Mingtai said and shouted to the audience, "Bring it up." After receiving his order, several young people from Koryo Medicine University carried a heavy wooden box to the stage. Everyone was very curious. This box looked so heavy. They didn't know what was inside. What did it have to do with acupuncture? They put the box in the middle of the stage, and then removed the outer packaging. A simple and magnificent bronze statue appeared in front of everyone. Su Hongbo and Fang Heluan suddenly stood up, and Lu Qigong, who was under the stage, was also shocked. He exclaimed, This is the acupuncture statue." Li Mingtai glanced at Su Hongbo and said proudly, "Yes, this is the acupuncture statue produced by our country. It has a history of about 500 or 600 years. This is the crystallization of our country's Koryo medicine, and it's also the best proof of our great achievements in acupuncture." "Nonsense!" Fang Heluan shouted, "Everyone knows that this acupuncture statue belongs to our Wuxia. In the 5th year of Tianqing in the northern Song dynasty, Emperor Renzong of Song ordered Hanlin Academy medical officer Wang to make an acupuncture statue. Its height was similar to that of a normal adult. The front and back sides of the chest and back could be used to connect the internal organs. The surface of the statue was engraved with acupoints, and the names of the acupoints were engraved next to them. At the same time, the acupoints on the surface of the statue were sealed with yellow wax and water was poured into them. If the acupoints were accurately chosen, the water would flow out. If the acupoints were not chosen correctly, the needles would not be able to pierce through. In the Ming dynasty, there were also bronze statues made for acupuncture. They were ordered by Emperor Yingzong of the Ming dynasty to imitate the bronze statues of the northern Song dynasty. They were made in the 8th year of the Ming dynasty. However, due to the long passage of time and the chaos of war in the later period, these bronze statues were all lost and their whereabouts were unknown. "Your bronze statue was passed down from our country. How could it be made in your country? Are you kidding me?" Li Mingtai said, "This acupuncture statue was made by the ancestors of our Li family. It's the embodiment of the acupuncture skills of Koryo medicine. It has nothing to do with your country. As far as I know, there are similar acupuncture bronze statues in the Museum of Wuxia, but they are hundreds of years later than mine. The so-called acupuncture bronze statues in the Song dynasty are just a legend. There is no evidence at all. I guess the technology of making acupuncture bronze statues came from our Koryo Guishue. Qin Haodong was amused. Li Mingtai was really simple-minded. He took the treasure of Wuxia and then made a false accusation. Couldn't he change the method? Su Hongba said, "Don't talk big. Don't you see that the acupoints on this acupuncture statue are marked with ancient Wuxia characters? So what? These are the kind ancestors of our Li family. They used Wuxia characters in order to make it convenient for you people to learn." Li Mingtai sneered and said, "Do you want to say that it was borrowed from your country again? If you have the ability, take out another loan receipt." He originally wanted to take this opportunity to ridicule Su Hui to express his dissatisfaction just now, but as soon as he finished speaking, he heard Qin Haodong say, "Yes. Yes. Yes. I really saw the loan receipt for the acupuncture statue at Mr. Lu's house just now, so I brought it here. It's in the car now. I'll go get it now." After that, he stood up and walked quickly out of the venue. Li Mingtai was suddenly dumbfounded. He just said it casually, but he didn't expect that Qin Haodong really had a loan receipt. How was this possible? Had his ancestors gone mad? It was one thing to borrow things from Wuxia, but why did they leave a loan receipt for everything? Cui Hongxiang said to Lu Qigong, "Teacher, is what he said true? Do you still have the loan receipt for the acupuncture statue? Where did you get such a valuable treasure?" Lu Qigong was speechless. When he just came out, Qin Haodong had brought his ink, paper, and inkstone, as well as the carved radish. He said that it might be useful, but he didn't expect that it would really be useful now. He didn't get in the car to get it, but to make it. Not to mention the loan receipt for the acupuncture statue, no matter what Li Mingtai took out today, as long as it belonged to Wuxia, Qin Haodong could take out the loan receipt. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "I got it by chance from a street stall." Cui Hongxiang sighed and said, "Wuxia is really a big country with abundant resources and a long culture. You can find such good things from a street stall. Our country can't do that. There are not many cultural relics, and there are even fewer good things that we can find." Chapter 584. Lu Qigong thought to himself, with Qin Haodong, no matter what kind of treasure it is, I don't need to go to the stall. I can make it in the kitchen at home. This time passed faster. Only 3 or 4 minutes later, Qin Haodong came in from the outside with a painting scroll. Back on the stage, he spread the painting scroll on the table and said to Li Mingtai, "Professor Li, take a look. This is the receipt that Koryo borrowed from Wuxia. Do you want to invite Professor Choi to come up and check it?" Li Mingtai looked at the receipt on the table. The scroll looked very simple. It was exactly the same as the one just now, but the content had been changed. The borrowing of the Compendium of Materia Medica was replaced by the borrowing of the acupuncture bronze statue, which was still stamped with the king's seal. He really couldn't figure out where this receipt came from. If it was fake, even he wouldn't believe it. Could Qin Haodong have foresight and make a fake one in advance to wait for him here? Although he knew that there was a kind of person who was good at counterfeiting antiques, it would take at least a few days or even a few months to make an antique. It was impossible to make a fake antique in a few minutes. In addition, Cui Hongxiang was famous for his stubbornness and integrity, and his antique appraisal level was also one of the best. How could he deceive his eyes? Now that the receipt was in front of him, he didn't have time to think about it. But this time, he naturally couldn't easily return the acupuncture bronze statue. There's no need to appraise it. He directly skipped the appraisal process. Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Since Professor Li thinks this receipt is real, shouldn't you return the acupuncture bronze statue to us?" Li Minty's heart twitched. He had taken out a treasure, but Qin Haodong wanted to take it back with the receipt, which made him so depressed that he had the urge to vomit blood. This time, of course, he wouldn't easily return the acupuncture bronze statue. He said, even if your receipt is real, it can't prove that it's our Li family's acupuncture bronze statue that you borrowed. Of course, if I don't return it, you will definitely be unwilling and think that I'm denying it. Let's do it this way. Today, I will challenge Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine with the acupuncture bronze statue. As long as the people of Shanghai Medical College can surpass our Koryo Medical College in using the acupuncture bronze statue, I will return it to you. If you can't win, how can you claim that this thing belongs to you? It can only mean that it belongs to our Li family. At the same time, it also proves that your Chinese medical skills are inferior to our TKM. Su Hongba asked, how do you want to compete? Li Minte said, this acupuncture statue has 354 acupuncture points. We'll use silver needles to pierce the acupuncture points. Let's see who can finish it in the shortest time. Su Hongba couldn't help frowning. Li Minty's method of competition sounded extremely fair, but in fact, it contained his thoughts. This acupuncture statue had been placed in the Li family for many years, and they had practiced it countless times. Naturally, they were very familiar with it. On the other hand, in Wuxia, as the place where the acupuncture bronze statue was produced, no one had even touched the acupuncture bronze statue. The few replicas were also placed in the museum. Naturally, they were very unfamiliar with how to use them, so they were at a disadvantage. But if they didn't compete, not only would they agree with Li Minty's words, but they would also weaken the momentum of Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. They didn't even dare to accept a competition. How could they say that Koryo medicine originated from Wuxia? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Qin Haodong. In this kind of competition, he and Fang Heluan were old and their bodies were not flexible enough. Naturally, they couldn't compete in speed. They could only rely on these young people, and Qin Haodong was his biggest reliance. Qin Haodong smiled and nodded at him. This kind of competition was extremely difficult for others, but it was not worth mentioning for him at all. Although he had never touched the acupuncture bronze statue, he had already figured out the structure of the acupuncture bronze statue with the powerful perception of his spirit. Even if others practiced thousands of times on this acupuncture bronze statue, they would not be able to reach his level. Seeing that he was full of confidence, Su Hongba immediately felt confident. He turned his head and said to Li Minte, okay, we'll take it. If you lose, remember to send the acupuncture statue back. Don't worry. A sly smile appeared on Li Minty's face. If we lose, we'll return the acupuncture statue. But what if you lose? Do you have to take out some stakes to be fair? Su Hongba said, what do you want to bet? Li Minte said, other things can't be compared with the acupuncture statue at all. Let's bet on the compendium of Materia Medica just now. How about it? Do you dare? This, Su Hongba's expression suddenly changed. If it was something else, he would dare to agree, but the compendium of Materia Medica was too important to Wuxia. This treasure had just been taken back by Qin Haodong. If he lost it again, he was afraid that he would become the sinner of the whole Wuxia and the sinner of traditional Chinese medicine. Li Minte said with a sinister smile, what's wrong? Professor Su, don't you dare. Didn't you just say that traditional Chinese medicine came from Wuxia, acupuncture came from Wuxia, and the acupuncture statue came from Wuxia? Now you don't even dare to compete with the acupuncture statue. How dare you say that? Seeing his conditions, the audience present were all filled with righteous indignation and shouted together, let's bet. We'll bet with him. Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine is the best in the world. There's no need to be afraid of Koryo medicine, the acupuncture statue is ours. We must let it return to Wuxia. At this time, the live broadcast on the internet was also becoming more and more popular. More and more people gathered in front of the monitor and began to cheer for traditional Chinese medicine. The more it was like this, the more pressure Su Hongbo felt. Qin Haodong saw his dilemma and said, "No problem. We'll bet with you." Li Mingtai said, "You're just a student. Can you represent Shanghai Medical College? Can you represent Wuxia?" Su Hongbo took a deep breath, calmed his excited mind, and said, "Yes, Qin Haodong's meaning is my meaning, as well as the meaning of our Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. We'll bet with you. If you win, you can take away the original copy of the Compendium of Materia Medica. If you lose, you leave the acupuncture statue." "Well, it's a deal." Li Mingtai seemed to have been prepared. He took out a stopwatch from his pocket and handed it to Alice. "President Alice, please be a witness for us and be a referee." "Okay, it's a great honor." Alice was very excited. The bronze statue full of holes had aroused her interest. "I've long heard that acupuncture is very magical. Today, I can finally see it." Li Mingtai introduced the rules of the competition to her in detail, explaining what it meant to have mercury in the needle. Then the competition officially began. The first to appear was Li Junqi from Koryo. As the son of Li Mingtai, he was known as the little medical sage in Koryo. He had practiced on this acupuncture statue countless times. He was extremely confident in this competition, so he was the first to rush up to show his strength. Li Junqi came to the acupuncture statue and took out a 4-inch long needle from the needle bag. Then he took a deep breath and got rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind. Then he held the silver needle upside down on his fingertips. He held the needle with his right thumb, index finger and middle finger in a steady style. As the notary and referee, Alice stood next to the acupuncture statue. When Li Junqi signaled that she was ready, she shouted, "Start." At the same time, she pressed the timer in her hand. Before that, all the muscles in Li Junqi's body were tense. After hearing the shout, he immediately pounced on the acupuncture statue like an agile leopard. He moved like lightning, and the 4-inch-long needle in his right hand pierced an acupoint of the acupuncture statue. This needle was not only fast, but also moderate. After the needle was pierced, he didn't even look at it. He picked up the needle and pierced the next acupoint again. After he pulled out the silver needle, a thin stream of mercury flowed out of the acupoint. Next, Li Junqi moved the needles like the wind, and his movements were swift. His footsteps were like butterflies arranging flowers, both beautiful and fast. The 4-inch big needle in his hand seemed to have grown eyes. Every needle was accurately inserted into the acupoints. Not a single needle hit the wall, nor did it miss. When he finished the competition and stood aside, mercury flowed out of all 354 acupoints on the acupuncture statue. Alice shouted to stop, looked at the stopwatch in her hand, and said to the crowd, "Mr. Li Junqi's time is 120 seconds. The audience present burst into an uproar. They were all medical students, so they knew how fast acupuncture was. No one expected Li Junqi to be so fast. He pierced 354 acupoints in 120 seconds, which was almost 3 needles per second. His speed was extremely fast. Although many people hated the provocative behavior of the Koreans, many people couldn't help applauding for his wonderful performance. Li Junqi put away the silver needles with a proud face. He glanced at Qin Haodong next to him and sneered, "Not everyone can be called medical sage. You have to have real skills. If you can't do what I did, you don't deserve this title at all." His father, Li Mingtai, was called the medical sage, and he was called the little medical sage. Qin Haodong was also called the medical sage, which made him extremely dissatisfied. It seemed that he was a generation younger than him, so he took the initiative to provoke him. Qin Haodong just smiled at his provocation and didn't even pay attention to him. Not to mention Li Junqi, he didn't even take Li Mingtai seriously. Li Junqi suddenly felt that he had punched the air, and he felt very uncomfortable. He turned around and shouted to Su Hongba and the others, "I'm done. Now it's your turn." Su Hongba frowned and whispered to Fong Heluan, who was next to him, "I didn't expect that this guy from Koryo has some skills. He can practice the acupuncture statue to this level." These two people were the masters of the school of Chinese medicine. In contrast, Fong Heluan's acupuncture skills were better. He stood up and said, "I'll give it a try." Su Hongba said, "Why don't we let the young people have a try?" "No, I don't believe that I will lose to them." After Fong Heluan said that, he stubbornly walked toward the acupuncture statue. Chapter 585. Looking at Fong Heluan's slightly stooped figure, Su Hui whispered in Qin Haodong's ear, "What do you think of Mr. Fong? Can he beat Li Junqi?" Qin Haodong said, "Acupuncture is about the integration of body, eyes, mind and hands. Mr. Fong has been immersed in acupuncture for a lifetime and has profound attainments. Unfortunately, because of his age, his body, eyes and hands can't be compared with Li Junqi in his prime. Because of this, Li Minte didn't do it himself. It's not because he disdains it, but because he can't compare with Li Junqi." Su Hui nodded and said, "What kind of result do you think Mr. Fong can achieve?" Qin Haodong said, "None of us have touched this acupuncture statue. If Mr. Fong takes it home and practices it for a month or two, it should be no problem for him to enter 3 minutes. But now he can't. I guess he can't even enter 8 minutes." While they were talking, Fong Heluan had already arrived in front of the acupuncture statue. He took out the silver needles and raised his hand to stab the acupuncture statue after Alice said, "Start." He was very accurate in recognizing the acupoints. After each needle was pierced, mercury immediately flowed out. Unfortunately, as Qin Haodong said, because of his age, the speed of his movements, the speed of his hands and the speed of his eyes couldn't be compared with Li Junqi's. If they were competing in acupuncture, he had a great chance of winning, but now they were competing in speed. After a dozen needles, he showed signs of fatigue. His speed decreased and there was a problem with the coordination of his eyes and hands. After a few crisp sounds, he stabbed the body of the bronze statue one after another. After barely stabbing more than 100 needles, the old man began to pant and sweat appeared on his forehead. When he finally stabbed all 354 acupoints, Alice stopped the timer in her hand and announced, "It took 485 seconds." After hearing this result, Fong Heluan looked disappointed. He walked back to his seat and murmured, "I'm old. I'm old after all." Su Hui said in a low voice, "Your guess is really accurate. It's only 5 seconds away. I'm going to give it a try. Guess what result I can get?" Qin Haodong said, "Your physical fitness is good enough, and your moves are fast enough. It's a pity that you have never touched the acupuncture statue. Compared with Li Junqi, you lack proficiency. It should be about 300 seconds. Su Hui said with some dissatisfaction, "After taking your physique-improving pill, my physical quality is much better than that of ordinary people. Besides, I have practiced the 9 magic needles of plum blossom. I don't think I will lose." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Try it and you'll know. I'll go now." Su Hui clenched her fists and walked toward the acupuncture statue after Fong Heluan walked back. She had also chosen a 4-inch needle. As soon as the competition began, her hands moved as fast as lightning, rapidly stabbing at the acupuncture statue. As she had just said, after taking the physique-improving pill, her physical fitness was much better now. Through the practice of the 9 magic needles of plum blossom, her speed was fast enough, but unfortunately, she lacked proficiency. If she was given half a month to practice, she would at least not lose to Li Junqi. Unfortunately, she couldn't do it now. In comparison, she was still much slower. When she finished stabbing 354 acupoints, Alice stopped the timer and announced, 296 seconds. Su Hui shook her head in annoyance and stepped back to Qin Haodong's side. She said dejectedly, I lost. Qin Haodong said, it's okay. You have performed very well. This is not a fair competition. I'll try. The one who spoke was Feng Wu, who had been silent. Since the beginning of the exchange meeting, she had been sitting next to Qin Haodong like a female bodhisattva. Now she was finally going to make a move. Su Hui said to Qin Haodong, what do you think of Sister Feng Wu? Will her performance be better than mine? Qin Haodong said with a smile, not only will her performance be better than yours, but she will also surpass Li Junqi. What? She's that good? Su Hui said in surprise, could it be that she has practiced the acupuncture statue? A playful smile appeared at the corner of Qin Haodong's mouth. No, but she is a master. The person in front of her was a master at the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. Even if she had not cultivated the spirit, even if she had not practiced the acupuncture statue, Feng Wu's superb skills could make up for it. It would not be a problem for her to defeat Li Junqi. When the competition began, Su Hui understood what Qin Haodong meant by a master. Her body movement and speed were very fast just now, but that was only relative to ordinary people. She could not be compared with Feng Wu at all. Feng Wu was wearing a long white dress today, with long black hair like a waterfall. She moved like a fairy, and her slender hands were like arranging flowers. Fast. She was too fast. Although she was still not familiar with the acupuncture statue, her speed made up for this shortcoming. If one needle couldn't do it, she could do it twice. The 2 needles added up would be faster than 1 needle. Li Junqi was proud just now, but he was immediately dumbfounded when he saw Feng Wu's performance. With this kind of speed, what would happen if she practiced on the acupuncture statue for a few days? Wouldn't he be instantly annihilated? Even so, Feng Wu still posed a huge threat to him. The further she went, the faster her speed became. The audience immediately burst into thunderous applause. Feng Heluan said to Su Hongba, Old Su, it turns out that there is such a master among our students. No wonder you dared to make this bet with Li Minte. It turns out that you have confidence in yourself. Su Hongba was also very surprised by Feng Wu's performance. He knew that this girl had a good talent in traditional Chinese medicine. Otherwise, she would not have been selected as a member of the delegation. But he had never thought that Feng Wu could be so good at martial arts and be so fast. At this moment, Feng Wu stabbed the last needle, and the 354 acupoints on the acupuncture statue all flowed out, 112 seconds. After Alice announced the result, she said to Feng Wu excitedly, your performance is amazing. Have you learned to dance before? This kind of question was really impossible to answer. Feng Wu just smiled at her and then returned to her seat. Su Hui said excitedly, Sister Feng Wu, you are really amazing. Feng Wu still smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Li Junqi's face was no longer as proud as before. He had thought that he could completely suppress Wuxia with his martial arts skills, but he didn't expect that he would be defeated by a woman in just a few minutes. Su Hongba said to Li Minte, Professor Li, what do you think? Do you want to admit defeat? Li Minte was also a little surprised. After all, they were cheating in this competition. Li Junqi had to practice his acupuncture skills on the acupuncture statue every day, but he was still surpassed by Feng Wu. He said, don't worry. We still have people who haven't made a move yet. Su Hongba said, why? Is Professor Li going to fight in person? Li Minte shook his head and turned to Kim Siyuan, who was sitting next to him, and said, you do it. Okay, teacher. Kim Siyuan answered and walked toward the acupuncture statue. Su Hui said, Brother Haodong, why did they send another woman? Is she more powerful than Li Junqi? Well, this woman is very powerful, much more powerful than Li Junqi. She should be the trump card of Koryo this time. Kim Siyuan walked with light steps. She was a warrior and had reached the 2nd level of covert power. With this kind of cultivation, medical skills, and her familiarity with the acupuncture statue, her speed would inevitably reach an amazing level. Do you mean that she is more powerful than Sister Feng Wu? Hearing Su Hui's question, Feng Wu glanced over with her beautiful big eyes. It seemed that she also wanted to know Qin Haodong's answer. Normally, she is not as powerful as Feng Wu, but she is very familiar with the acupuncture statue. This is their biggest advantage. Qin Haodong said very tactfully, but he also gave the answer. The implication was that Kim Siyuan was faster than Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, "What if I lose? Can you win against this woman?" While speaking, she looked at the man in front of her with burning eyes. She could feel strong confidence from Qin Haodong, but she could not feel any aura of a warrior, which made her very confused. Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, "Of course, I'm the medical sage of Wuxia. How can a few doctors from Koryo compare to me?" On the side of the bronze statue, Kim Siyuan had already started. In terms of movement, she was not as fast as Feng Wu just now, but she was too familiar with the acupuncture statue. She almost didn't need to look at every needle or think about it. She just needed to stab the silver needle in her hand as fast as possible. After watching for a few seconds, Feng Wu said softly, "I lost." Qin Haodong said, "It's not your fault. As long as you practice it 3 or 5 times, you will be faster than them." "What about compared to you?" "Me?" Feng Wu's question surprised Qin Haodong. He said, "We are teammates. There is no need to compare. So I'm not as fast as you?" Feng Wu's expression was very calm, but her question was aggressive. Qin Haodong said, "There is no comparison between us." "Why? Do you look down on women?" "No, I don't have the guts." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Because I'm older than you." He was telling the truth. His spirit, which had been cultivated for 500 years, was naturally not comparable to Feng Wu. However, no one could understand the hidden meaning. As she spoke, Kim Siyuan's speed became faster and faster. Her expression was cold, and the silver needle in her hand flew up and down. Every time it moved, it would bring out a mercury column. Soon, she pierced the last needle and ended the competition. Alice pressed the stop button, and then her mouth opened wide in surprise. "Oh my God, that's too fast. 101 seconds. Oh my God, how could she be so fast? How did this woman practice? She was only 1 second away from entering 100 seconds. Isn't this too exaggerated? It's over. Is there any hope for Wuxia? Don't be discouraged. Our medical sage hasn't made a move yet." At this time, the competition had entered a white-hot stage. Under the attention of thousands of people, Qin Haodong stood up and walked toward the acupuncture statue with a smile on his face. His footsteps were very calm, as if he was not going to compete, but to receive an award. Chapter 586. Seeing Qin Haodong on the stage, Alice said, "Dear medical sage, are you finally going to fight? James said that you are his teacher and he highly admires your medical skills. I'm really looking forward to your performance." Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry, I won't let you down." Kim Siyuan just put away her silver needles. She turned around and said to Qin Haodong, "Wuxia man, you can't beat me." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Then you'll be disappointed." Kim Siyuan snorted coldly and turned to walk off the stage. When Qin Haodong came to the acupuncture statue, Alice said, "Medical sage, can we start now?" "President Alice, you might not know this, but this acupuncture bronze statue came from Wuxia. Acupuncture was also created by our ancestors. If we were to compete with them like this, I think we're bullying them. So, we have to increase the difficulty." While speaking, Qin Haodong took out a black silk from his pocket and covered his eyes. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he wanted to defend the dignity of Chinese medicine. Today, he not only wanted to defeat these provocateurs of Koryo, but also wanted to make them despair and completely lose the courage to challenge. After the previous few games, everyone had already known the difficulty of the acupuncture statue. Many people still had hope for Qin Haodong, but when they saw that he had covered his eyes, the audience suddenly burst into an uproar. "Oh my God, will he die if he doesn't act tough? Didn't he see how fast the woman in front of him is? He even covered his eyes. How can he win? What do you mean? What does he mean? Is he looking for trouble? Is the medical sage crazy, or is he going to throw the game? The holes on the acupuncture statue are so small. How can he stab with his eyes covered?" Li Junqi glanced at him and suddenly laughed. "Is this what the Wuxia people call looking for trouble? How can he compete with his eyes covered? What's the point of competing? Such a person has the nerve to call himself a medical sage. I think he should be called a moron." Kim Siyuan shook her head slightly. Originally, she felt a trace of danger from Qin Haodong, but now it seemed that she had thought too much. How could such an arrogant person defeat her? But at this moment, a scene that shocked them even more appeared. Qin Haodong actually took out 2 4-inch-long needles from the needle bag. He held one in each hand and held the needles with both hands. Seeing this scene, Fang Heluan shouted, "What is this kid doing? Was he playing to the gallery? I've practiced medicine for so many years, but I've never seen anyone who can use needles with both hands." He had just experienced the difficulty of the acupuncture bronze statue. It was already very difficult to beat Kim Siyuan in a normal competition, but this guy was still increasing the difficulty. What was he trying to do? It's fine for young people to like to show off, but you have to have the strength to do so. Otherwise, you'll just make a fool of yourself. Su Hongbao's face also became ugly. Originally, he had high hopes for Qin Haodong, so he once again put the mother copy of the Compendium of Materia Medica on him. But now Koryo had shown amazing strength. Kim Siyuan could be said to have shocked everyone, but Qin Haodong had made so many stunts. Could they still win this game? What if they lost this match? Not only did he lose the Compendium of Materia Medica that he had just taken back, but it would also greatly affect the reputation of Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. Thinking of this, his heart immediately became heavy. Feng Wu's eyes flickered, and she said to Su Hui, "Do you think he can win?" Su Hui said, "I think we can win." "Why?" Su Hui said, "Because I think he never does things that he is not sure of. Since he holds the needles with both hands, he must have the ability to do so." "Do you trust him a lot?" Su Hui smiled and said, "Yes, I trust him more than I trust myself." Unlike the worries of the Wuxia people, everyone on the Koryo side was smiling happily. Acupuncture was different from shooting. Shooting could be done with both hands. They only had one target, which was relatively large and easy to control. When shooting, they only needed to pull the trigger and did not need to control their strength. Acupuncture was different. Each silver needle could only be pierced at one acupoint, and each acupoint had different requirements for strength, which greatly increased the challenge of the acupuncture bronze statue. Before coming to Wuxia this time, you still regarded this guy as an opponent. Now it seems that you really think too much. He is just flashy and has no real ability at all. The medical sage of Wuxia is not qualified to be compared with the medical sage of Koryo at all. His voice was very loud, and he didn't hide his arrogance at all. Li Minte nodded slightly, and a complacent smile appeared on his face. He seemed to have seen it. He had taken back the Compendium of Materia Medica and trampled on Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine. But at this moment, his smile froze on his face, because Qin Haodong began to move. After Alice shouted to start, he quickly stabbed the acupuncture bronze statue with the needles in both hands. His two hands cooperated with each other, and the silver needles in his hands fell on the acupuncture bronze statue like raindrops. Kim Siyuan's eyes suddenly widened. Qin Haodong's movements were so fast that it was beyond her imagination and incredible. When he used the acupuncture bronze statue, the mercury came out every time. However, because Qin Haodong's speed was too fast, he often pierced 4 or 5 acupoints in succession after pulling out the golden needle, and the mercury just flowed out of the first acupoint. This speed was beyond the limit of human beings. Although he was blindfolded, he had a powerful spirit. He had already seen the acupoints of the acupuncture bronze statue clearly. All he needed to do was to send the silver needles in. It was also because of the spirit that he had the confidence to use needles with both hands. Is he still a human? Not only Kim Siyuan, but all the people present who knew acupuncture were stunned. It should be known that the acupuncture bronze statue was exquisite. Each acupoint had an extremely accurate requirement for strength. If the strength was too strong, the mercury would not flow out, and if the strength was too weak, there would be no reaction. However, Qin Haodong was blindfolded, and his hands were moving left and right. Not only could each needle accurately pierce into the acupoints, but the strength was just right. Each needle could bring out a stream of mercury. It was not an exaggeration to call this kind of technique a divine skill. Through the live broadcast on the internet, the audience from all over the world looked at the screen in front of them with dull eyes. Because Qin Haodong's movements were so fast, they could only see his hands turning into shadows. They couldn't see what was going on at all. This kind of speed was really shocking. However, there was not much time left for them to be shocked. Soon, Qin Haodong had pierced 354 acupoints. When he withdrew the silver needles, the mercury slowly flowed out of the last few acupoints, which showed how fast he was. Alice pressed the stop button of the timer and announced with a shocked face, "Mr. Qin's result is 51 seconds. In an instant, the audience quieted down. 51 seconds was such a shocking number. Kim Siyuan's performance just now had already amazed the audience, but Qin Haodong's speed was almost twice as fast as hers. "Dear Qin, you're so great. Did you just use magic?" Alice's face was full of amazement and admiration. Although she didn't know acupuncture, she could see how amazing Qin Haodong's technique was just now. At this time, the audience came to their senses, and then there was thunderous applause and shouts. In 51 seconds, the medical sage of Wuxia completely defeated the people of Koryo with his divine technique. This speed was absolutely unprecedented. No one could surpass it, and no one could even get close to it. Su Hongba stood up and first walked around the acupuncture bronze statue. He reached out and touched it, as if he was admiring his own treasure. After a while, he turned to Li Minte and said, "Professor Li, is there anyone else on your side who wants to challenge me? If not, I'll take this acupuncture bronze statue away." Li Minte's face was gray, and there was even despair in his eyes. The skill that Qin Haodong had just shown had completely destroyed all their confidence. Facing such a powerful opponent, it was like looking up at a mountain. They had no courage to challenge him at all. 51 seconds, with a black gauze covering his eyes and holding needles in both hands, this kind of divine technique and unimaginable speed would always be on top of the doctors of Koryo. As Qin Haodong had expected, they were completely desperate. Even for thousands of years, no one would dare to stand up and challenge the acupuncture bronze statue of Wuxia. After a moment of silence, he said with great difficulty, "We admit defeat." Hooray, the Koryo finally admitted defeat. The acupuncture bronze statue has gone home. The medical sage is mighty. He won back the acupuncture bronze statue for us. He won honor for Wuxia. Chinese medicine is invincible. The medical sage is mighty. Long live Wuxia. As Li Minte admitted defeat, the whole venue was in an uproar. Countless cheers and shouts rang out for a long time. The two old men, Su Hongba and Fang Heluan, were so happy that they danced with joy. They had just received the original copy of the Compendium of Materia Medica, and now they had taken the acupuncture bronze statue home. This was simply the biggest festival in the Chinese medicine world. They called the staff of the venue and carefully carried the acupuncture bronze statue away. Feng Wu glanced at Qin Haodong, who was calm next to her, and asked, "How did you do it?" In the past, she was arrogant and rarely paid attention to others. At this moment, this young man had already attracted her attention. "Nothing, I'm just fast," Qin Haodong said carelessly. "I mean, how did you accurately recognize the acupoints with your eyes covered?" This was what Feng Wu was most puzzled about. Although Qin Haodong's speed was very fast, it was not difficult for her to reach this speed if she was familiar with the acupuncture bronze statue. The difficult part was that he could accurately recognize the acupoints while blindfolded. Qin Haodong put his head in her ear and whispered, "Because I have a third eye." His words seemed to be a joke, but in fact, his powerful spirit was equivalent to his third eye, and it was thousands of times more sensitive than ordinary eyes. "Forget it if you don't want to tell me. There's no need to lie to me." It was the first time in Feng Wu's life that a man was so close to her. Feeling the breath in her ear, she couldn't help blushing. Feeling shy, she didn't ask any more questions. Chapter 587. After the acupuncture statue was carried off the stage, the exchange meeting continued. Su Hongbo looked at Li Mingtai with a playful look and said, "Professor Li, do you have any evidence to prove that traditional Chinese medicine came from your country?" Up to this point, these people from Koryo were not here to debate, but to give gifts. They first sent back the compendium of Materia Medica of Wuxia, and then they sent back the acupuncture statue. Was there any other good stuff? Li Mingtai's face was livid. He glanced at Qin Haodong next to him. He really didn't know if this young man would still have an IOU if he took out another thing. "Professor Su, as for whether Koryo medicine originated from traditional Chinese medicine or traditional Chinese medicine originated from Koryo medicine, we can't debate it in a short time. Why don't we go straight to the next item? Let's compare our medical skills and see which is better." Although he said that, in fact, everyone could see that in the first stage of the debate, Koryo had been completely suppressed by Wuxia. Especially in the end, Qin Haodong's amazing performance on the acupuncture statue made these arrogant people of Koryo speechless. Su Hongbo smiled slightly. With Qin Haodong, the medical sage, in charge, of course, he was not afraid of competing in medical skills. He said, "Okay, whatever you want to compete with, we will accept it." Before Li Mingtai could speak, Li Junqi shouted, "I want to challenge Qin Haodong. Let's compete in pulse diagnosis." "Okay." Su Hongbo directly agreed. He knew that Qin Haodong's medical skills were the best on his side. Since Qin Haodong wanted to challenge the experts on his side, of course, he didn't have any objection. Qin Haodong glanced at Li Junqi. Originally, with this guy's medical skills, he was not qualified to challenge him at all, but since he had already come close to him, he didn't mind slapping him a few times. "What do you want to compete in?" "I want to show you how big the gap between traditional Chinese medicine and Koryo medicine is." Li Junqi was full of confidence and arrogance as he spoke. Among all the skills of traditional Chinese medicine, he was best at pulse diagnosis, so he directly proposed the one he was best at. Qin Haodong said indifferently, "How do we compete?" Li Junqi said, "Each side will choose 3 people to feel the pulse of the other side. These 3 people can have any diseases, and they can also be healthy people. Let's see if the other side can give an accurate diagnosis." Qin Haodong said, "How to judge the accuracy of the result?" Li Junqi said, "Everyone who is selected will write down their physical condition or illness in advance, and then hand it over to President Alice. Our diagnosis will match the patient's written condition. Each person will make 3 diagnoses, and the one with the most accurate diagnoses will win. For the sake of fairness and to prevent others from cheating, we have to cover our eyes and ears with headphones when feeling the pulse, and only use our hands to feel the pulse." "No problem." Qin Haodong said, "Who's first?" Li Junqi said, "I proposed a challenge." I'll go first. You can choose 3 people at will for me to feel their pulse. After he finished speaking, he sat behind a table, took out a black scarf to cover his eyes, and then put on a big headset with music playing. Qin Haodong looked down the stage. Many onlookers were eager to try, especially Ji Fubao and Tian Buguang. They almost jumped up. He waved his hand, and Ji Fubao and Tian Buguang immediately ran to the stage. Li Meiyu had always been a lively person, so she followed the 2 guys to the stage. The number of 3 people was gathered. According to the rules of the competition proposed by Li Junqi, the 3 of them wrote down their physical condition and sent it to Alice. Su Hui frowned and whispered to Qin Haodong, "Can the 3 of them do it?" As a classmate, she was very clear about the physical condition of these people. After taking the physique-improving pill, these people had no problems at all. They couldn't be healthier. Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Just wait and see. These people have the cheek to come to Wuxia to steal our traditional Chinese medicine. Since they are shameless, I will make them lose all their faces here." Seeing the evil smile on Qin Haodong's face, Su Hui knew that things were not as simple as she had imagined. Li Junqi was going to be unlucky. After the 3 of them handed in their notes, Qin Haodong made a silent gesture to them. He patted Li Meiyu's shoulder casually, indicating that she would be the first to feel the pulse. Since Li Junqi's ears and eyes were all covered, Kim Siyuan stood next to him as an assistant. After Li Meiyu sat down, she took Li Junqi's hand and put it on Li Meiyu's pulse. The competition officially began. Under everyone's gaze, time passed minute by minute. About a minute later, Li Junqi withdrew his hand and said confidently, "I'm clear about this. Next one." Qin Haodong patted Tian Buguang's shoulder again and asked him to feel the pulse. Then it was Ji Fubao's turn. In less than 5 minutes, all 3 of them finished feeling the pulse and then returned to the audience. Li Junqi took off his headset and blindfold, took the pen and paper next to him, and wrote down the 3 people's symptoms one by one. Kim Siyuan did not leave. She stood next to him. When she saw the symptoms he had written down, her face changed greatly. She couldn't help reminding him, "Are you sure?" Li Junqi did not hear Kim Siyuan's hint at all. He said proudly, "Of course. You know that my level of pulse diagnosis is second only to my father's. These people's symptoms are very common. It's impossible for me to make a mistake." After saying that, he walked straight to Alice and handed in the list of symptoms that he had written. Seeing this scene, Kim Siyuan could not say anything more. She went straight back to her seat and even stretched out her hands to cover her face, as if she could not bear to look at it at all. Seeing her performance, the people next to her all had strange expressions on their faces. They did not know what the problem was. Alice took the paper bag and said, "Mr. Li, I'm not very familiar with Chinese. You should say it yourself." "Okay." Li Junqi raised his head, faced all the audience under the stage, and said confidently, "The first patient injured his kidney. The kidney deficiency can't flourish with Yin, so he is weak." After listening to him, Li Minte was completely dumbfounded. He sat there with a stiff expression, like a wax statue. He had never expected that his son would say these things. Alice said, "Mr. Li, this is too profound. Can you make it simpler and easier to understand?" Li Junqi said, "To put it simply, it's what everyone calls yang. Impotence." Su Hongba had just taken a sip of tea. After hearing his words, he suddenly spat it out and then coughed violently. Although many of the audience present did not understand Chinese medicine, they all burst into laughter after hearing his words. Everyone knew that the first patient was Li Meiyu, a beautiful girl. How could he say that she was impotence? Could it be funnier than this? This guy is really funny. He actually said that our school bell is yang. Impotence. A quack. He's really a quack. I've lived for so many years, and it's an eye-opener. How dare he come to Wuxia to provoke us with such a low level? I really don't know what these guys are thinking. I'm dying of laughter. I'm really dying of laughter. I thought this guy was very good, but now it seems that he's not as good as me. At least I won't say that a woman is young. Impotence. Tian Buguang and Ji Fubao were sitting next to Li Meiyu. They looked at her and laughed. They were about to faint from laughing. Li Junqi stood there, confused by the laughter around him. He didn't know what his problem was. At this moment, a beautiful girl stood up from the audience, pointed at his nose and scolded, "Who are you talking about? Impotence? You're the one with Yan. Impotence, your whole family is Yan. Impotence, all your ancestors are Yan. Impotence." Li Meiyu was really going to go crazy. Originally, she just went up to join in the fun. She didn't expect that this guy's diagnosis would be so wrong. He actually said that she was Yan. Impotence? How could she live? Li Junqi was completely dumbfounded. Could it be that he had just diagnosed this girl? But he clearly felt that her pulse was Yan. Impotence? What was going on? Feng Wu glanced at Qin Haodong, who had a wicked smile on his face, and said in a low voice, "Did you do it? You can't talk nonsense. The diagnosis was made by him. It has nothing to do with me." Qin Haodong said with a playful face, "If I don't let these guys suffer some losses, how will they know the breadth and depth of traditional Chinese medicine?" He had just patted Li Meiyu's shoulder and instantly changed her pulse with greenwood genuine qi. The pulse that Li Junqi felt was the pulse that he wanted Li Junqi to see. Su Hongba held back his laughter. He stood up and motioned for Li Meiyu to sit down. He maintained the order of the venue and then motioned for Alice to continue. Although Alice didn't know the mystery, she also knew that Li Junqi's first diagnosis was wrong, and it was very wrong. She said, "Mr. Li, please tell me the diagnosis of the second patient." Li Junqi took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He recalled Tian Buguang's pulse and confirmed that there was no mistake. He said, "The second patient's disease is irregular menstruation." This time, he didn't dare to show off his achievements in traditional Chinese medicine, so he directly told the final result. But as soon as he said that, everyone present completely burst into laughter. Tian Buguang, such a big man, was said to have irregular menstruation. What words could people use to describe this kind of medical skill and doctor? Li Minte felt as if his face was on fire. He finally understood why Kim Siyuan had such a reaction when she saw Li Junqi's diagnosis. Now he wanted to find a place to hide. Shameful. It was really shameful. However, he had found so many reporters and broadcast it live all over the world. How could the Li family raise their heads as doctors in the future? The audience watching the live broadcast from all over the world also laughed. They didn't understand whether this doctor from Koryo was here to compete in medical skills or to be funny. First, he said that a woman was impotence. Then, he said that a man had irregular menstruation. This was too unreliable. Was this the level of Koryo medicine? Chapter 588. Tian Buguang was convulsing with laughter because of Li Meiyu's diagnosis just now, and his face was a little numb. But when he heard Li Junqi's diagnosis, his smile immediately froze on his face and he was completely dumbfounded. The tables had turned. Li Meiyu, who had been embarrassed by his smile, burst into laughter without caring about her image. Ji Fubao laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. He patted Tian Buguang on the shoulder and said with difficulty, "Brother, when did you get a terminal illness? Why didn't you tell me?" Tian Buguang said angrily, "This damn guy, I'll fight him to the death." Looking at the whole venue, except for those people from Koryo, everyone fell into wild laughter. The corner of Feng Wu's mouth twitched. She said to Qin Haodong, "Isn't this a bit too much? Too much. I don't think so. Qin Haodong glanced at Li Mingtai and the others, whose faces were extremely ugly, and said, do you know what these people are doing here? It sounds like a cultural exchange, but in fact, it's naked plunder. In those days, they were ignorant and backward. It was the Wuxia people who taught them slash-and-burn farming, culture and medical skills. But what happened in the end? These people who bite the hand that feeds them say that they created traditional Chinese medicine, our compendium of materia medica, and even our outstanding ancestors. Feng Wu said lightly, in this world, what's true and what's false can't be true, and what's true can't be false. Traditional Chinese medicine is Huaxia's traditional Chinese medicine. Everyone knows it clearly. No. You're wrong. Not everyone knows it clearly. Qin Haodong said, only our Huaxia people know it clearly. Some foreigners and Westerners won't be able to tell it apart if they call it that. They might even think that traditional Chinese medicine originated from Koryo medicine. For example, President Alice, I guess she didn't know the relationship between traditional Chinese medicine and Koryo medicine before this. If these people continue to make fun of her, more and more people will be confused. Feng Wu said, are these false reputations so important to you? Qin Haodong said, of course it's important. The reason why you don't care is that you don't care about traditional Chinese medicine. If I'm not wrong, you should be a martial artist. If one day someone jumps out and says that your sex things were learned from them, or even stolen from them, how would you feel? For example, if the child was your biological child, but your neighbor, old Wang, jumped out and said it was his, how would you feel? Don't tell me you're going to remain indifferent and echo the opinions of others. This, Feng Wu's expression changed a little, and she fell silent. She had her own sect, she had something she wanted to protect, and she would never allow anyone to violate the things she cared about. Qin Haodong continued, the reason why I did this is to let these people of Koryo see the gap between them and genuine Chinese medicine practitioners. Secondly, I want them to lose face. Since they are so shameless, we will slap their faces hard. I want the whole world to see that Koryo medicine is nothing in front of Chinese medicine practitioners. I want the whole world to know that Koryo medicine practitioners don't even deserve to carry shoes for Chinese medicine practitioners. These people who come to provoke us will only be in awe when we hurt them. If we simply win today's game, they will have Kim Mingtai and Park Mingtai come to Huaxia to show off their strength. Anyway, they will be heroes if they win. It doesn't matter if they lose. Feng Wu's expression changed again and she said, you're right. While the two of them were talking, the laughter in the hall faded, and Alice had laughed enough. As the referee, the game still had to go on. She said to Li Junqi, who was completely confused, Mr. Li, please tell me the diagnosis of the third person. This, although he had already noticed that something was wrong, he still had to say the last result. Li Junqi gritted his teeth and said, the third person's pulse is rolling like a pearl. In the eyes of Koryo medicine practitioners, this is the pulse of pregnancy, so I diagnosed her as pregnant. Ji Fubao had just stopped smiling and rubbed his numb cheek. When he heard Li Junqi's diagnosis, his eyes suddenly widened. Damn it, what the hell? When did I get pregnant? Tian Buguang, who had been laughed at for a long time, suddenly burst into laughter. You're pregnant, fat brother. You're really pregnant. Whose child is it? I'm telling you, it has nothing to do with me. Ji Fubao was so angry that his eyes suddenly widened. Damn Koryo medicine. You can't tell me that I'm pregnant just because my belly is a little bigger, can you? With the announcement of the diagnosis, the venue, which had just calmed down for a while, was in an uproar again. Everyone already had doubts about today's exchange meeting. Were they here to watch a game or a comedy? Is this little Korean doctor a joke? A beautiful girl said that she was impotent. A tall and handsome man said that he had irregular menstruation. Finally, a tall and strong man said that he was pregnant. Damn Koryo medicine. Can you do it? Can you be more reliable? Get out. Get out. With this level of skill, how dare you challenge our Wuxia traditional Chinese medicine practitioners? You're really too weak. With this level of skill, you can just pull out your hair and hang yourself. Can you just stay at home? Why did you come out and make a fool of yourself? In the face of the ridicule around him, Li Junqi's face was pale and his eyes were dull. He even began to waver in his studies. What's going on? What the hell is going on? It's obviously that pulse. Why is it so wrong? Alice said, Mr. Li Junqi, although I don't understand Koryo medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, I can directly give you the result from the competition just now. Your diagnoses of the 3 patients are completely wrong. The first patient is a beautiful lady. You said that she was impotent. The second and third patients are both men, but you said that they were pregnant because of irregular menstruation. This is not scientific at all, so you must be wrong. Feng Wu said to Qin Haodong, I'm really curious about how you did it. It's actually very simple. It's just a little trick. Qin Haodong looked at her and smiled. If you want, I can also give you a pulse. You can choose any of the 3. Bah! You can keep yours. Feng Wu's face was flushed, which was rare. She looked particularly attractive. How could this be? Li Junqi looked confused. Suddenly, he saw Qin Haodong next to him and immediately cried, I know, it's him. It must be him. He must have cheated. Alice's face immediately darkened and she said in a cold voice, Mr. Li, are you questioning the fairness of my judgment? If you say that Mr. Qin cheated, please show me the evidence. Li Junqi just felt that something was wrong. There was no evidence. Come back. Don't embarrass yourself anymore. Li Mingtai called Li Junqi back and then said to Alice, President Alice, my son's diagnosis is over. According to the rules, it should be Mr. Qin's turn. All right then. Alice shook her head slightly. In her opinion, there was no point in continuing. But since the other party had asked, she had to finish the competition completely. She turned back to Qin Haodong and said, Mr. Medical Sage, it's your turn now. Qin Haodong nodded with a smile. Then, he sat in front of the table where Li Mingtai had just sat. He also covered his eyes with a black scarf and put on a headset to play music. Li Mingtai said to Kim Siyuan, go to our college and choose 3 healthy people. There must be no problem with them. Send them up for Qin Haodong's diagnosis. Kim Siyuan said in a low voice, Teacher, what do you mean? Li Mingtai said, this competition is already very embarrassing for us. Now we can only hope that Qin Haodong will also make mistakes and save some face for us. But since he dares to call himself the medical sage, he must have some skills. Ordinary diseases can't stop him. It's better to play an empty fort strategy and send 3 healthy people to see if they can disturb his mind. Okay, teacher. Kim Siyuan nodded. Li Mingtai's trick was not about medical skills, but about a person's mind. In this kind of competition, it was difficult for ordinary people to have the courage to make 3 healthy diagnoses. As long as Qin Haodong made a wrong diagnosis, they would be able to save some face for them. She walked down the stage and soon brought 2 students from Koryo to the stage. Li Mingtai said, why is one missing? Kim Siyuan said, we don't have many students. It's not easy to find a completely healthy one. I'll be the 3rd one. Li Mingtai nodded. The 3 of them wrote down their physical conditions and handed them to Alice. The first student walked to Qin Haodong's table. Qin Haodong reached out and touched the student's wrist for about 10 seconds. Then, he said, okay, next one. Then, he called the second student. It still took him more than 10 seconds to call the 3rd one. Fong Heluan frowned and said, isn't it too fast? Young people are still not very reliable. Aren't they a little arrogant? Su Hongbo didn't care. He said with a smile, I don't think little Qin is that kind of person. Even if he is arrogant, he has the capital to be arrogant. So far, he was extremely satisfied with Qin Haodong's performance in today's exchange meeting, which had exceeded his previous expectations. After the second student left, Kim Siyuan sat down and put her wrist on the table. Qin Haodong reached out and put his hand on Kim Siyuan's pulse. Just when everyone thought that he would finish the diagnosis soon, he frowned slightly. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. After a full 3 minutes, Qin Haodong took back his right hand. The students all left. Qin Haodong took off his blindfold and headset and began to write down his diagnosis on a piece of paper. Just like the previous procedure, he first handed the paper to Alice, and then told the result of his diagnosis in public according to Alice's request. Qin Haodong said, the first one is healthy, and the second one is healthy. When he said this, Li Minty's heart suddenly jumped. Could it be that this young man's psychological quality was so good that his plan was going to fail? Chapter 589. Qin Haodong continued, the third patient is schizophrenia. After he finished speaking, there was silence. Everyone could accept that the first two patients were healthy, but no one could believe that Kim Siyuan, who was extremely beautiful and energetic, was schizophrenic. What's going on? Did the medical sage make a wrong diagnosis? That girl from Korea also participated in the acupuncture bronze statue competition. Apart from the medical sage, she has the best result. How could such a person be mentally ill? Wrong. Wrong. The medical sage must have made a wrong diagnosis. Such a smart and beautiful woman can't be schizophrenic. Although Qin Haodong's previous performance had won everyone's respect, his diagnosis had been widely questioned. No one believed that Kim Siyuan, who looked extremely energetic, would be mentally ill. A smile appeared on the corner of Li Minty's mouth. She was still too young. In the end, she had fallen into his trap. Su Hongba shook his head. Although Qin Haodong was outstanding enough, his psychological quality was still lacking. It was obvious that he had fallen into Li Minty's trap. Fortunately, he had only misdiagnosed one case. On the whole, he had won Li Junqi's challenge. After seeing this result, Li Junqi, who had been defeated one after another, suddenly felt very happy. After suppressing it for a long time, he finally let out a breath of anger. He laughed and said, "What a joke! What a joke! Qin, you didn't expect that the third patient was my junior sister, did you? You actually said that she was mentally ill. My junior sister has been smart since she was a child, and her attainments in art are higher than mine. How could she be mentally ill? Your diagnosis is ridiculously wrong. How can you call yourself the medical sage of Wuxia with this kind of medical skills?" There was a flash of disappointment in Feng Wu's beautiful big eyes. She had been full of curiosity about this young man's medical skills before, but now it seemed that there was still a big gap between his level and her expectations. Although the people around him had different reactions, Qin Haodong was still calm. He turned to look at Kim Siyuan and said, "Miss Kim, I know that the third patient is you. Do you think my diagnosis is right or wrong? Junior sister, hurry up and tell him that his diagnosis is wrong." "You are very normal and healthy," Li Junqi was shouting happily, but he found that Kim Siyuan was looking at Qin Haodong excitedly. The expression on her face was extremely complicated. She took a few steps and came to Qin Haodong. Under the strong excitement, her lips trembled slightly. "Dr. Qin, are you sure I have schizophrenia?" Qin Haodong said, "Of course I'm sure, but your schizophrenia is indirect. If I'm not mistaken, it should occur on the 14th day of every month. But now your condition is getting worse, much worse than before." Hearing the conversation between the two of them, the commotion immediately disappeared. Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. What does that mean? Could it be that such a beautiful woman was mentally ill? How was this possible? Could it be that Koryo sent a lunatic to participate in this exchange meeting? The smile on Li Minty's face immediately disappeared, and he revealed a stunned expression. Kim Siyuan had been learning TKM from him since she was 8 years old. Her parents had indeed asked him to take her pulse, but there was nothing wrong with her body. In the following years, Kim Siyuan would ask him to take her pulse once a year, but she was in good health. Her pulse was stable, and he didn't notice any problems. If she had schizophrenia, he would have found it long ago. Just as he was puzzled, Kim Siyuan knelt down in front of Qin Haodong and said, "Dr. Qin, please save me. I really have schizophrenia. I can't stand it anymore. If it goes on like this, I will be tortured to death." Seeing this scene in front of them, the onlookers were silent at first, and then they burst into an uproar. No one had expected this to happen. Just now, the two sides were competing in medical skills and fighting for traditional Chinese medicine. But now, one side actually knelt down and asked the other side for treatment. Wasn't this turn of events a little too big? Li Junqi was stunned at first. When he came to his senses, he quickly ran over and reached out to pull Kim Siyuan up. "Junior sister, are you crazy? Why are you kneeling down to this guy?" Kim Siyuan pushed him away and cried, "Get out of my way. Dr. Qin is right. I really have schizophrenia." She begged Qin Haodong again, "Dr. Qin, please save me. As long as you can cure my illness, I'll pay any price." Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "Miss Kim, you'd better get up. I can cure your illness, but I can't cure you. This competition is only about diagnosis, not treatment, so I'm sorry. Please find someone else." "No, Dr. Qin, please don't. Please, please save me. No matter what you want, you must save me." Kim Siyuan knelt in front of Qin Haodong and cried. She looked pitiful. It was the first time in more than 20 years that she had met someone who could see her illness. How could she let go of this opportunity? Alice stepped forward and said, "Medical sage, your diagnosis of all 3 cases is correct. I announce that you have won the competition. As a doctor, I don't think you should refuse your patient. Since Miss Kim has asked for treatment and you have seen her illness, you should help her relieve her pain." Qin Haodong said, "Miss Alice, I understand what you said, but the medical sage of Koryo is sitting there. You saw the purpose of their visit today. They want to show that Koryo medicine is better than traditional Chinese medicine, and even that traditional Chinese medicine is independent of Koryo medicine. In this case, do you think it's necessary for me to help?" After that, he turned to Kim Siyuan and said, "Miss Kim, you must have made a mistake. The medical sage of Koryo is sitting there. You can go to him for treatment. It's useless. I've tried everything." Kim Siyuan wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said, "I've been suffering from intermittent mental illness since I was a child, but my parents didn't tell anyone because they wanted to keep it a secret. But over the years, they secretly took me to see famous hospitals all over the world. Before I was 8 years old, I had almost seen Western medicine all over the world. I even visited the World Medical Association, but there was no result. All the examinations said that I was mentally normal. Later, my parents wanted to try Koryo medicine, so they took me to my teacher's house and begged him to feel my pulse, but he didn't find out what was wrong with me." Hearing Kim Siyuan's story, everyone looked at Li Minty. Li Minty suddenly felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. His face was hot as if it was on fire. Before this, he was known as the medical sage of Koryo, but he didn't expect that his apprentice couldn't find out what was wrong with her. More than 10 years had passed, and he had felt Kim Siyuan's pulse every year, but he hadn't found anything unusual. Now he took his apprentice to challenge traditional Chinese medicine, but he was diagnosed with a disease. Was there anything more humiliating than this? At this time, Kim Siyuan didn't care about his feelings at all. She continued, "The reason why I studied Koryo medicine is to treat myself, but after so many years of study, I still haven't found a clue. Even my teacher can't do anything about my illness, so I completely gave up on Koryo medicine. So this time, I came to Wuxia to participate in the cultural exchange. My real purpose is to try traditional Chinese medicine and see if it can cure my illness. Dr. Qin is undoubtedly the best traditional Chinese medicine practitioner in Wuxia, so I just took a place and asked Dr. Qin to diagnose me. Now it seems that what I did was right. Dr. Qin really found out my illness. After waiting for more than 20 years, I finally waited for this day. Dr. Qin, please, no one can save me except you and traditional Chinese medicine. After listening to her, the audience was in an uproar again. He can't even cure his apprentice's illness, but he dares to call himself the medical sage. The medical sage of Koryo can't be compared with the medical sage of Wuxia, it's so shameful. How dare he say that traditional Chinese medicine is learned from Koryo medicine with such a low level, the medical sage is so powerful. He even found such a difficult and complicated disease. He's simply my idol. Qin Haodong glanced at Kim Si-yuan and said, I'm sorry, I still can't cure your illness. Why? Two voices sounded at the same time. One was Kim Si-yuan, and the other was Alice. Alice said excitedly, Mr. Medical Sage, although your medical skills are very high, you are also a doctor. As long as a patient asks you for medical treatment, you should lend a helping hand. Why do you refuse a patient? Qin Haodong said, you're right. Doctors should relieve patients' pain, but the premise is that patients should respect doctors and medical skills. The current situation is that they want to use traditional Chinese medicine to save lives, but they don't give it enough respect. They say that traditional Chinese medicine comes from Koryo medicine and that Koryo medicine is better than traditional Chinese medicine. They are ungrateful, but they want me to treat them. Do you think it's possible? This, Alice did want to help Kim Si-yuan, but Qin Haodong's words were reasonable, which made her speechless for a while. Kim Si-yuan quickly said, Dr. Qin, I was wrong. I apologize for my previous wrong views and statements. After seeing the breadth and depth of traditional Chinese medicine, I know how wrong I was. Now I beg you to forgive me. Qin Haodong said lightly, if you didn't ask me to save your life now, would you apologize for your mistakes? I will. An old voice sounded. It was Li Mingte. He came to Qin Haodong and said, I wanted to challenge you after Zhang Ji lost, but now I don't have the courage and qualification to challenge you. Shi Yuan has been by my side for more than 10 years, but I haven't been able to find her illness. This is enough to show the gap between our medical skills. There is no need to compete anymore. I was a frog at the bottom of a well before. I overestimated myself and didn't see the breadth and depth of traditional Chinese medicine. I wanted to challenge traditional Chinese medicine with Koryo medicine. Now I know I was wrong, and I was very wrong. I formally apologize to you and traditional Chinese medicine. After returning to China, you should publicly withdraw my inappropriate remarks and cancel my title of medical sage. You are the real medical sage. Chapter 590. Li Mingte's words were tantamount to directly admitting defeat to traditional Chinese medicine on behalf of TKM. After he finished speaking, the whole hall burst into cheers and shouts like thunder, almost lifting the roof. Long live! Long live traditional Chinese medicine! The medical sage is mighty. Qin Haodong glanced at Li Mingte and felt that his words were completely from the bottom of his heart. It seemed that he was completely convinced by him. Then he looked at Kim Si-yuan, who was looking forward to it, and said, well, I'll treat your illness. But your condition is special, so it's not convenient for you to be treated here. Come to me tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Qin. Kim Si-yuan's tears flowed down again. After so many years of waiting, she finally saw hope. Alice said, Mr. Medical Sage, if you can't treat her here, can you let us watch you on the spot? Qin Haodong said, her condition is special. She needs to be quiet during the treatment. It's not appropriate to treat her here. Oh. Alice nodded and said, Mr. Medical Sage, I've seen the magic of traditional Chinese medicine. I really want to see you use your medical skills to treat patients and save people. Can you satisfy my wish? Dr. Qin, I also want to see your magical medical skills. After Li Mingte finished speaking, he was afraid of causing a misunderstanding, so he quickly explained, I don't mean anything else. I just want to learn medical skills from you to make up for my shortcomings in medical skills. Qin Haodong looked at Su Hongba next to him and said, Mr. Su, I think we can choose a few cases to treat here. What do you think? In his heart, he felt that today was a rare opportunity. Alice, the president of the World Medical Association, was at the scene and was doing a live broadcast on the internet. It was a good opportunity to let the world know about traditional Chinese medicine. Of course, Su Hongba also realized this and said, no problem. I'll tell the director now and ask the outpatient department to send us a few suitable cases. Ho Wenbin had been watching from the sidelines. He was very satisfied with the performance of Shanghai Medical College today. Not only did they win the exchange meeting, but they also brought the acupuncture bronze statue and the compendium of Materia Medica back to Wuxia. This was absolutely a great achievement, and it would definitely leave a deep mark in the history of the development of Shanghai Medical College. After hearing Su Hongba's request, he immediately contacted the person in charge of the outpatient department and asked them to send a few emergency patients over. The affiliated hospital of Shanghai Medical College was one of the best hospitals in Shanghai. There were countless patients every day. Not long after the call was made, the siren of an ambulance sounded. Then, a few medical staff in white coats ran in with a stretcher, followed by an anxious middle-aged woman. Lying on the stretcher was a 3 or 4-year-old girl. Her face was ashen and she had stopped breathing. It seemed that her situation was critical. Doctor, who is the doctor? Save my granddaughter. The middle-aged woman shouted anxiously. She was the little girl's grandmother. She had just called the ambulance. She had no idea how the child was sent there. She looked at the people around her and didn't know what to do. The stretcher was just placed in front of Li Mingte. He squatted down and put his hand on the little girl's wrist. Then, he quickly said, there's a foreign object stuck in the child's trachea, causing breathing difficulties. The situation is very critical. As the president of the World Medical Association, Alice immediately realized the urgency of the situation. She hurriedly shouted, in this case, we must have an operation to remove the foreign body. It's not suitable for treatment here. Send him to the emergency room for surgery. Li Mingte said, the situation is very dangerous now. It's too late to send him to the operating room. The little girl's grandmother hurriedly shouted, what's wrong with your hospital? You didn't send my granddaughter to the operating room, but sent her here. If anything happens to my granddaughter, I will fight you to the death. Ho Wenbin's face became very ugly. He had just asked the emergency room to send a few cases over. He didn't expect that the emergency room would send such a difficult disease to them. He was also a doctor. He knew that the best treatment for the little girl's situation was surgery, but it was too late now. He was afraid that she would suffocate to death before she was sent to the operating room. Su Hongba and Fang Heluan looked at each other anxiously. This kind of disease was a shortcoming for traditional Chinese medicine, and they couldn't come up with a good solution for a while. Don't worry, let me do it. Qin Haodong said as he stepped forward and held the little girl in his arms. Then, he sat on a chair and let the little girl lie on his lap. Alice cried, Dr. Qin, don't waste any more time. Hurry up and send the little girl to the emergency room. Otherwise, it's really too late. The only way to treat this disease is surgery. Before she could finish speaking, Qin Haodong reached out and patted the little girl's back. Then, with a snap, a peanut sprayed out of the little girl's nostrils. Then, Qin Haodong reached out and massaged the little girl's back a few times. The little girl came back to her senses and burst into tears. Okay, it's all right. Qin Haodong stood up and handed the little girl to her grandmother. You must be careful when you look after the child in the future. Don't let the child breathe some small things into her nostrils. The little girl's grandmother was stunned for a moment before she came to her senses. She hurriedly thanked him and said, "Thank you, little doctor. Thank you so much. Tell me your name and phone number. When the child's father comes back, I'll ask him to thank you and send you a pennant and a bonus." She was almost crazy with joy. She had thought that her granddaughter would have to undergo surgery, but she didn't expect that she would be cured without any injury. Qin Haodong said, "No need. I'm a doctor. It's my duty to treat patients and save people." After seeing off the little girl and the middle-aged woman, there was a burst of applause. Alice said in amazement, "Dr. Qin, your medical skills are really amazing. Can you tell me how you determined the position of the little girl's foreign body and how you got it out?" She was very interested in this now. There were countless similar cases all over the world every year. Most of them could only remove the foreign body through surgery. If this technique was mastered, the treatment would become much simpler and the patient's pain would be alleviated. Qin Haodong said with a smile, "This method can only be done by traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. You can't learn it." He had just used his spirit to detect the position of the peanut, and then wrapped the peanut with genuine qi and ejected it. Not only was it fast, but it would also not cause any damage to the little girl's trachea. However, he was the only one in the world who could do this. Alice said, "Mr. Medical Sage, I know that you pay attention to ancestral secret recipes, but you should take out such a good treatment and apply for a patent to benefit more people." Qin Haodong shook his head and said with a smile, "It's not a matter of patent. Even if I apply for a patent, no one can use it." At this moment, another ambulance stopped at the entrance of the auditorium, and then several medical staff carried a young man in his 30s and ran. The young man's face was pale and painful, and his hands were tightly covering the right side of his lower abdomen. Li Mingte had now completely changed his attitude. He wanted to seize the time to learn more from Qin Haodong, so after seeing the case, he took the initiative to go up and put his hand on the young man's pulse. "What's wrong with you?" The young man said with a painful face, "Doctor, I suddenly have a stomachache." About a minute later, Li Mingte took back his right hand and said with a slight regret, "This is acute appendicitis. Send him to the operating room." After he finished speaking, no one else had any objection. All the people present were Chinese medicine practitioners. They were very clear about the advantages and disadvantages of Chinese medicine. If it was chronic appendicitis, they could still use Chinese medicine to treat it, but acute appendicitis could only be treated by surgery. Su Hongbo waved his hand and was about to ask someone to send the young man away. Qin Haodong said, "Acute appendicitis can also be treated with acupuncture." After that, he went forward and felt the young man's pulse again. Then, he took out the silver needles from the needle bag. In the blink of an eye, he pierced 7 silver needles into 7 major acupoints in the lower abdomen. After the 7 silver needles were pierced, the effect was immediate. The pain on the young man's face immediately disappeared, and his complexion also looked much better. Alice asked curiously, "Medical Sage, is this how you treated old Maldini's brain tumor? Is the legend true? Can acupuncture really replace surgery? Whether it's true or not, you'll know after you see it." Qin Haodong said as he asked the doctor next to him for a piece of medical cotton cloth. Then, he pierced a hollow silver needle in his hand into the young man's lower abdomen. Then, he flicked the silver needle gently, and a stream of thick black blood with a foul smell sprayed out from the heart and fell on the cotton cloth in his hand. "It's all right. You can go back now," Qin Haodong said as he took back the silver needles. The young man had recovered. He jumped up from the stretcher, thanked Qin Haodong, and turned to walk out. Divine skill. It was simply a divine skill. The people around were stunned and admired Qin Haodong's medical skills to the extreme. Fong Heluan had also heard of Qin Haodong's name before, but he was inevitably a little unconvinced. He thought it was just a young man's hype. Now that Qin Haodong had cured 2 cases that he couldn't do anything about, he was completely convinced. The third patient was a construction worker who had fallen from a high place. Both of his legs had been completely broken. Li Mingtai said, "Leave this case to me. Medical sage, please give me some advice." He had always thought that his bone-setting skills were very good, so he quickly set the construction worker's left leg. "I've reset this leg for you. You can't move it for half a month. After half a month, you can walk. After a month, you can move normally," Li Mingtai said as he looked back at Qin Haodong. In his opinion, his bone-setting skills were done neatly and the effect was also good. He should be able to get the medical sage's approval. Unexpectedly, Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "That's not how to set bones. The effect is too poor." After that, he reached out and grabbed the construction worker's right leg. With a pull and a push, the 2 legs were reconnected with a click. He left a green with genuine qi in the broken bone to protect it, and then said, "You can try to stand up now. Don't do heavy physical work for a week. After a week, you can return to normal." Chapter 591. Is this really okay? Although the pain in his right leg had completely disappeared, the construction worker still couldn't believe it. As the old saying went, it would take 100 days to recover from an injury. How could it be healed so quickly? You'll know after you try. Qin Haodong reached out and gently pushed. The construction worker stood up from the stretcher. Although his right foot was on the ground, it was stable, as if he had not been injured. He tried to put his left leg on the ground, and there was a sudden sharp pain in his leg. The feeling of his left leg was completely different from that of his right leg. Qin Haodong asked him to sit on a chair next to him and said, "Bear with it. I'll fix this leg for you." After that, he grabbed Li Mingtai's left leg, which had just been fixed, and pulled it open again. The construction worker felt a sharp pain, but before he could scream, Qin Haodong had fixed his broken left leg again. "Okay, try again this time." After that, Qin Haodong asked the construction worker to stand up again. The construction worker tried to walk a few steps on the ground and found that his legs had recovered. He shouted excitedly, "It's okay, it's really okay. You're really a magic doctor. Thank you so much." Qin Haodong said, "Okay, go back. Remember to rest for a week before going back to work." After the construction worker left, Li Mingtai said with a sigh, "I used to think that my bone-setting skills were first class, but compared with medical sage, it's just child's play. I really admire you." Alice followed and said, "It's amazing. It's really amazing. I've never seen such magical medical skills. Chinese medicine is really amazing." It was almost noon, and Ho Wenbin no longer asked the outpatient department to send patients over. The medical exchange meeting came to a successful end. After seeing off Alice, Li Mingtai, and the others, Su Hongba and Zhang Heluan bowed to Qin Haodong together. Qin Haodong said in surprise, "Two old masters, what are you doing?" Su Hongba said, "Haodong, we thank you on behalf of Chinese medicine. It's definitely a great credit to the Chinese medicine community for bringing back the acupuncture bronze statue and the compendium of Materia Medica, which have been lost for many years." Zhang Heluan said, "At the same time, we also thank you for making traditional Chinese medicine shine again and become famous in the world." The two old men knew very well that if it wasn't for Qin Haodong's performance today, they wouldn't have been able to deal with the challenge from TKM. Just the acupuncture statue alone would make them lose face. After the two of them finished speaking, the audience cheered together, "Medical sage is mighty. All hail the medical sage." Although the exchange meeting had already ended, the aftermath hadn't stopped. Because of Qin Haodong's outstanding performance, the whole traditional Chinese medicine community was proud and elated, and a wave of traditional Chinese medicine fever was set off in Wuxia. After Li Mingte returned, he immediately withdrew his inappropriate remarks about traditional Chinese medicine. At the same time, he formally apologized to traditional Chinese medicine. Since then, the saying that traditional Chinese medicine originated from TKM disappeared, and no one dared to mention it again. Qin Haodong became famous after that battle. All the students of the medical college knew that he was the medical sage of Jiangnan. For a time, he became the idol of thousands of students and the dream lover of countless girls. In the evening, when Qin Haodong returned home, Kim Siyuan was already waiting in front of the door as promised. Li Mingte and the others had returned to Koryo, and she was the only one left in Wuxia for treatment. When she saw Qin Haodong, she immediately greeted him and asked anxiously, "Dr. Qin, can you really cure my disease?" "Don't worry, I can definitely cure it," Qin Haodong said as he led her into his room. After Kim Siyuan sat down, Qin Haodong looked at her and said, "If I'm not mistaken, there should be another soul living in your body, and it has a deep hatred for you. It wants to take over your body. Can you tell me the specific reason?" "Yes. That's right. Dr. Qin, you're right," Kim Siyuan said excitedly. "When my mother was pregnant with me, she was actually a pair of twin sisters, but they were conjoined babies when they were born, and they were not fully developed, sharing the same heart. The doctor said that only one of us could survive. In the end, my mother chose to keep me. I don't know whether it was the older or younger sister, but the baby died after the operation. Because of this, she had a lot of resentment in her heart. After her death, she didn't reincarnate, but stayed in my body. Every day on the day of the operation, that is, on the 14th of every month, she always tried to take over my body. So every day on the 14th, I would go crazy. I was crazy to destroy everything in front of me, and even hurt my own body. My parents didn't know the reason. They took me to see a lot of doctors, but it didn't work. Later, they slowly found a pattern. Every 14th, they would tie me up and let me out when I was back to normal. When I was a little older, I became sensible and told them about the situation in my body, but my parents had no choice. In that case, they had to make a choice. Later, they found many monks and Taoists, trying to release the soul in my body, but it didn't work. Later, they also saw a lot of traditional Chinese medicine, but it still didn't work. Kim Siyuan said with a painful expression, "And as time goes by, the soul in my body is getting stronger and stronger. It used to occupy my body for 2 or 3 hours, but now it's getting longer and longer. It's almost a day. I feel that if it goes on like this, sooner or later she will completely occupy my body and turn me into a real lunatic. Dr. Qin, please save me. I'm in so much pain now. This is also her fate. She can't blame anyone else," Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry. Now I'm going to get her out of your body." Kim Siyuan said, "Dr. Qin, in fact, she is also a poor person. If possible, it's best to send her to reincarnation. Don't hurt her, okay?" Qin Haodong said, "After so many years, she still refuses to leave. It can be seen that the resentment in her heart is great. I'll talk to her later and see the specific situation." Kim Siyuan nodded and said, "Please, Dr. Qin." Qin Haodong asked her to sit cross-legged on the bed. Then, he took out the silver needles and pierced them into the big acupoints on the top of her head one by one. When the 7th silver needle was pierced, suddenly a wisp of black qi rose from the top of Kim Siyuan's head and finally turned into the appearance of a little girl. It was vaguely visible that her appearance was very similar to Kim Siyuan, but her expression was very fierce. The little girl looked around, as if she was very curious about how she came out. Finally, she saw Qin Haodong next to her and said, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Qin Haodong said, people have their own ways. You have been dead for so many years. Why don't you let go of the obsession in your heart? If you were reincarnated, you would be about 20 years old now. Hearing what he said, the little girl immediately shouted with a violent expression, why should I be the one who died? Why are they so partial? We are both their daughters. If they had chosen me, I would have been able to survive. Why did they choose this woman? Qin Haodong said, if they had chosen you, then she would have been the one to die. Life and death are predestined. You were originally twin sisters. Why are you so persistent? I don't care. Don't meddle in other people's business. Since I can't live, then I want her to die. After saying that, the little girl turned around and rushed to Kim Si-yuan, trying to return to her body. Stubborn. Qin Haodong flicked his finger and a silver needle went into Kim Si-yuan's brain. After trying several times, the little girl was surprised to find that she couldn't go back. How dare you ruin my plan? I'll kill you. After that, she rushed at Qin Haodong with her fangs and claws, as if she wanted to take over his body. Qin Haodong waved his hand and the yin-yang mirror flew out. A golden beam of light fixed the little girl in the air. The little girl struggled desperately, but found that she couldn't get rid of the light beam at all. Only then did she know that she had met a master. She cried in horror, Master, please spare my life. Please spare my life. Qin Haodong said, I'll give you two choices. First, let go of your obsession and reincarnate. Second, let go of your soul. I choose to be reborn. I choose to be reborn. Under heavy pressure, the little girl immediately gave up the hatred in her heart. Find a good family in your next life. Go. Qin Haodong made a spell and the little girl was sucked into the yin-yang mirror and reincarnated. After getting rid of the resentful spirit, Qin Haodong took out the silver needle on the top of Kim Si-yuan's head. She slowly opened her eyes and felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Dr. Qin, is the problem solved? Qin Haodong nodded. How is she? Kim Si-yuan asked with a complicated expression. She had an indescribable feeling for the resentful spirit in her body, which was both resentment and guilt. Qin Haodong said, she has been reincarnated. Thank you, Dr. Qin. Kim Si-yuan breathed a sigh of relief. She took out a check with a face value of 1 million yuan and handed it over respectfully. This is the consultation fee. Thank you. Without you, I really don't know how long I could have lasted. Qin Haodong didn't stand on ceremony. He took the check and put it aside. Kim Si-yuan said, Dr. Qin, I see the breadth and depth of traditional Chinese medicine from you. Can I worship you as my teacher? Qin Haodong said, how much do you know about Wuxia culture? Kim Si-yuan said, because of studying medicine, I know a lot about Wuxia culture. If you are willing to accept me as your disciple, I will not let you down. Qin Haodong shook his head and said, that's not what I mean. I just want to ask you, have you heard of any famous Wuxia stories? Kim Si-yuan said curiously, I know a lot. Which one are you talking about? Qin Haodong said, Mr. Donghua and the Wolf, the Farmer and the Snake, traditional Chinese medicine and Korean medicine. Kim Si-yuan looked ashamed. She lowered her head and said, I'm sorry, Dr. Qin. I apologize again for my previous stupid behavior. Qin Haodong said, I'm just doing my duty as a doctor to treat you. Our fate ends here. You can go now. Of course, he wouldn't let go of the past just because of an apology. Today, traditional Chinese medicine was under his control, so they would apologize. If one day, Korean medicine surpassed traditional Chinese medicine, then the story of the farmer and the snake would be played again. Kim Si-yuan also knew that she couldn't go back on her words. She bowed respectfully and then left. Chapter 592. After Kim Si-yuan left, Qin Haodong took the little fellow to the basement to refine elixirs. He had brought back so much spirit water from Shenbao Mountain in the capital, but he hadn't had time to use it yet. The father and the daughter were busy. Half an hour later, the basement was filled with the fragrance of elixirs. Qin Haodong patted the Shenong tripod gently, and 9 black energy-gathering pills flew out and fell into the small jade bottle in his hand as if they had intelligence. Qin Haodong glanced at the elixirs in the bottle and couldn't help but be overjoyed. He saw that each elixir had 3 dazzling patterns. The higher the level of elixir, the more difficult it was to refine patterns. The energy-gathering pill he had refined before was barely formed, but now there were 3 patterns. It was the same energy-gathering pill, but the effect was several times worse. It could be seen that the spirit water played a great role in improving elixirs. He was overjoyed and got busy again. A furnace of energy-gathering pills and spirit-culturing pills was put into the jade bottle. At 8:00 in the evening, Qin Haodong walked out of the basement with the little fellow happily. In the past few hours, he had refined 3 furnaces of energy-gathering pills and 10 furnaces of spirit-culturing pills. This trip to the imperial capital had greatly stimulated him. Facing the experts of the 7 great clans that were as numerous as the clouds, his current foundation was still a lot weaker. But these pills could allow him to quickly increase the cultivation of his subordinates and quickly strengthen his own team. The little fellow ran to the living room to watch TV. He looked around and saw that there was no one around, so he quietly went to Lin Momo's room. Seeing him enter the door, Lin Momo said, "What are you doing? You're acting like a thief." Qin Haodong stepped forward and held her in his arms. He kissed her hard and said, "I know. I'm obviously dating my wife at home, but I'm acting like a thief. I'm really tired of this kind of life. I don't know when this damn bodyguard task will end." Under the attack of his 2 big hands, Lin Momo's face turned red and her breathing became heavy. "Don't be ridiculous. Even without Li Meiyu, I still have my daughter." Qin Haodong said with a monkey's face, "Why don't we go out and get a room?" Lin Momo pushed him away and said, "Lin's jewelry has just opened recently, and we've taken over a lot of Zhang's businesses. I've been so busy all day. Do you think I'm like you? I only know how to hook up with girls when I have nothing better to do. Where would I find the time to get a room with you? I can't even hook up with you, how would I have time to hook up with others? I'm busy with business." Qin Haodong kissed her red lips again. Then he took out an energy-gathering pill that he had just refined and said, "I specially refined this for you. What do you think of its effect?" Lin Momo took it and asked, "What medicine is this?" "Energy-gathering pill, but this is an enhanced version refined with the spiritual water of the spirit spring. The effect is much better than before. Try it and see if you can go further." "Oh. I'll give it a try." Since she embarked on the road of cultivation, Lin Momo also realized the importance of cultivation for a warrior. She sat cross-legged and put the energy-gathering pill into her mouth. Lin Momo had eaten a lot of energy-gathering pills before, but she immediately felt different after eating the enhanced version. The genuine qi in her dantian was like erupting magma, rushing to her limbs. She quickly focused her mind and ran her genuine qi wholeheartedly, rushing to the bottleneck of the 4th level of the Supreme Power Realm. Qin Haodong guarded the door to prevent others from coming in and disturbing her. Then, he quietly observed the changes in Lin Momo. About half an hour later, he felt that Lin Momo's momentum suddenly rose, more than twice as much as when she was at the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm before. He even clearly felt that Lin Momo had broken through the bottleneck of the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm and reached the 4th level of the Supreme Power Realm. "Haodong, I've broken through." Lin Momo opened her eyes and said with a happy face, "The effect of your pill is really good. I've improved by 1 level after taking it." Qin Haodong was also very happy to find that the enhanced version of energy-gathering pill was so effective. He happily took out a jade bottle and stuffed it into her hand. Well, you can eat more. This pill is made by our family. You can eat as much as you want. When you can reach the saint realm, I can live off a woman with peace of mind. Having verified the efficacy of the enhanced version of the pill, Qin Haodong left Lin Momo's room and began to distribute the pills to his family. He first gave some enhanced spirit culturing pills to Nalan Wushuang, Qi Wan, and the divine mercenaries. Then, he asked Saber to take the pills to Ma Wenjue. After everything was arranged, he drove out of the house, took out his mobile phone, and dialed Nalan Wuxia's number. He had the pills for other people, but he had to give the girl who went to Shanghai for him a share. After the phone was connected, he said, "Where are you now? I'll go and see you. I'm at the criminal police unit." There was a hint of exhaustion in Nalan Wuxia's voice. "It's so late. Why haven't you gotten off work yet? Are you on duty today?" Qin Haodong said as he drove straight to the criminal police unit in the Dongqing district. Nalan Wuxia said, "I'm not on duty. I'm working overtime. I've worked overtime several times recently." "What happened?" Qin Haodong said, "Is it convenient for you now? I'll go and see you." Nalan Wuxia said, "It's a long story. Come over now. I'll wait for you at work. Let's talk when we meet." "Okay, I'll be right there." Qin Haodong hung up the phone and drove at full speed toward the criminal police unit. In the villa of the Sun family, the black-robed man pointed at the nose of Sun Xingtian, the family master, and was furious. "The people sent by the sect master will arrive in Shanghai at midnight today. You still haven't gathered the number of children. What's wrong with your Sun family?" In front of the black-robed man, Sun Xingtian didn't have the power of a family master at all. He lowered his head and said, "Your Excellency, don't be angry. It's because the sect master has too many children. Recently, we've stolen 18 children from Shanghai, which has caused a lot of repercussions. Now everyone is watching the children closely. It's really difficult to take them, so we still need 2 more." The black-robed man said with killing intent, "Sun Xingtian, how dare you be dissatisfied with the sect master? Don't forget who gave you everything in the Sun family. And don't forget what will happen if you disobey the sect master's order." Sun Xingtian's face was full of fear. He quickly said, "I dare not. I dare not." The black-robed man glanced at the clock on the wall and said without any emotion, "There are still 3 hours before midnight. I don't care how you do it. You have to gather the number of children, even if you have to rob them. Otherwise, there's no need for the Sun family to exist." Sun Xingtian said, "Rest assured, Your Excellency. I'll arrange someone to do it." The black-robed man's tone softened a little and he said, "Do it well. As long as you do it to the sect master's satisfaction, the masters of the sect will naturally help you kill that boy. It won't be difficult for the Sun family to become the top family in Shanghai." Qin Haodong drove to the criminal police unit in Dongqing district and found that it was brightly lit. Nalan Wuxia was not the only one working overtime. No one had gotten off work. He opened the door of the office and saw Nalan Wuxia sitting at the desk, staring at the computer screen in front of her. He asked, "What's going on? Why are you so nervous?" Nalan Wuxia stretched herself and said with a tired face, "You don't know, there have been many cases of missing children in Shanghai recently. Our criminal police unit in Dongqing district is not the only one working overtime. The entire Shanghai Public Security Bureau is working overtime." Qin Haodong walked behind her, reached out and massaged her shoulders. He asked, "Child thieves? How come there are so many of them all of a sudden? I don't know why, but these damn human traffickers may have gone crazy recently. They've gone crazy and have stolen 18 children. I really don't know what they're going to do." Nalan Wuxia pointed to the computer screen, which was filled with the information of each child. These children were about 3 to 5 years old, and they seemed to be about the same age as Tang Tang. I'm comparing the information of these missing children to see if there's anything in common. Qin Haodong said, they've committed so many crimes in a row. Didn't they leave any clues? Nalan Wuxia said, that's the strange thing. These child thieves are very clever. Not only do they do it quietly, but they also leave no clues at the scene. Some parents even find out that their children are missing a few hours later. And these people are very bold. Now the whole Shanghai is in a state of high pressure. All the police are investigating this case, but they still commit crimes against the wind. They don't mean to stop at all. Qin Haodong said, I don't think they're ordinary human traffickers. There should be another reason behind it. Nalan Wuxia said, we think so too. They've committed so many crimes without leaving any clues or being discovered. They're just like martial arts masters. Qin Haodong's heart skipped a beat and he said, now that you mention it, I also remember that maybe these people are really masters. Have you ever thought that maybe it was some evil gangs who committed the crime? They stole the children not to sell them, but for other purposes. You really remind me. We should adjust the direction of the investigation. As the two of them were talking, the door opened and a young policeman ran in. Captain Nalan, there's just been another case of missing children in Dongqing district. But this time, the children were not stolen, but robbed. These damn people are really getting more and more rampant. They've changed from stealing to robbing. Nalan Wuxia suddenly stood up and said, tell me the specific situation. The young policeman said, we just received a report that a child's mother was suddenly knocked out, and then the child was taken away. Did you see what it looked like? The young policeman said, I didn't see it. There was no one on the side of the road. The child's mother was knocked out from behind. But the characteristics of the child are very clear. She's a 4-year-old girl with long hair, wearing a white dress and red shoes. Nalan Wuxia said to the young policeman, get the car ready. We'll go to the scene right away. Chapter 593. After receiving Nalan Wuxia's order, the policeman hurried out to prepare the car. Qin Haodong said, do you want me to help you? No, I'll find you if I need help. While speaking, Nalan Wuxia hurriedly put on her coat. Qin Haodong also knew that he could only help in the interrogation. Now there was no suspect, so it was useless for him to go. The police were the best at solving cases. He took out a small jade bottle and put it in Nalan Wuxia's hand. This is my latest energy-gathering elixir. It's very effective for improving cultivation. Thank you. Nalan Wuxia put away the small jade bottle, turned back and gave Qin Haodong a kiss. Then she hurried out. Seeing several police cars roaring away, Qin Haodong also got in his Range Rover and drove slowly out of the criminal police unit. He didn't expect that Nalan Wuxia would be busy so soon. She came back much earlier than planned, so he was not in a hurry. He drove slowly and enjoyed the night view of Shanghai while walking. After walking for a while, a car suddenly roared past him, driving forward at high speed. It was a Mercedes-Benz business car without a license plate. The glass was covered with a thick solar film. Ordinary people couldn't see the situation inside the car at all, but Qin Haodong could. At the moment when the two cars passed each other, his keen eyes and powerful spirit had already seen the situation inside the car clearly. There were 4 men in black sitting in the car. These people's eyes and aura were cold, as if they had no feelings. In the back seat, there was a little girl of 3 or 4 years old. She seemed to be asleep and lying there motionless. Qin Haodong suddenly realized that something was wrong. The little girl had long hair, wore a white dress and red shoes, which matched the characteristics of the child who had just been stolen. He raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that things would be so coincidental that he would meet the robbers that Nalan Wuxia couldn't find. Since he had encountered such a heartless thing, he couldn't ignore it. However, he didn't drive directly, but followed them from a distance. In that instant, he could tell that the four men in black were death warriors. Even if he stopped the car now, he wouldn't be able to interrogate the mastermind behind it. He wouldn't even be able to keep them alive. At that time, it would be even more impossible to find the 18 children who had been stolen. Therefore, he followed them patiently. He wanted to find the nest of these people and rescue the other children who had been stolen. Due to the existence of his primordial spirit, he maintained a sufficient distance from the car in front of him. Those people did not notice that someone was following them. After circling around the Shanghai city for more than half a circle, they drove out of the city and finally saw a huge manor. Qin Haodong couldn't help but feel cold. He was very familiar with this manor. He had just brought people to smash it a few days ago. It was the manor of the Sun family. Could it be that the kidnappers were from the Sun family? As the #1 aristocratic family, why would the Sun family steal a child? One thing was certain, it was definitely not for the money. He chose a quiet place to hide the car, then got out of the car and sneaked into the Sun family's manor. There were 8 bodyguards guarding the door of the Sun family, and the other positions were also heavily guarded. However, these were useless to Qin Haodong and would not pose any obstacle. He jumped over the high wall and directly entered the courtyard of the Sun family. The moment his feet landed, a faint sense of crisis rose from the bottom of his heart. Qin Haodong hid his body in the dark and wondered, what's going on? Who could make me instinctively feel danger? Normally, the 3 friends of Sui Han had the highest cultivation in the Sun family. These 3 people were only at the 2nd level of the supreme power realm. Even if they fought together, they would not be a match for him. The source of the crisis was definitely not them. It should be another master. Thinking of this, he took out an invisible talisman and completely covered up his aura. Then, he quickly moved into the Sun family's manor. After returning from the capital, he had refined more than a dozen invisible talismans. He carried them with him and did not know when he would be able to use them. As he became more proficient, the newly refined invisible talismans were much more effective than before. They could guarantee that he would not be discovered for 10 minutes. There was a small square in the middle of the Sun family's manor, with an area of about 200 to 300 square meters. When Qin Haodong arrived, the square was already filled with dozens of men in black. These people were divided into 2 camps. One was the men of sacrifice trained by the Sun family, while the other had strange patterns printed on their clothes and exuded a strange aura. It was obvious that they were from an evil sect. However, the cultivation of these people was generally much higher than that of the men of sacrifice of the Sun family. They had all reached the level of covert power. In the middle of the square stood the patriarch of the Sun family, Sun Xingtian, and a black-clothed man completely covered in a robe. In front of them were 20 large iron cages, and in each cage was a child. These children were generally 4 or 5 years old. Including the little girl that Qin Haodong had just seen, there were 20 boys and 10 girls in total. These children were sitting in the cages and sleeping. It seemed that they had been drugged or something like that. Sun Xingtian said to the man in black, "Your Excellency, the 20 children have been gathered. Are you satisfied with them?" The man's black robe shook and he nodded with satisfaction. "Well done. The Lord will reward you." "Thank you, Your Excellency." Sun Xingtian said, "But we've made too much noise this time. We'd better send these children away as soon as possible." The man in black said, "Don't worry. According to the agreed time, the people sent by the Lord will arrive. Then they can take these children away." Seeing this, Qin Haodong had almost guessed it. This man in black should be from an evil sect. The Sun family was cooperating with them. These children were stolen by the Sun family and given to this evil sect. The cultivation of this man in black was at the 3rd level of the supreme power realm. If he attacked with the Xian Yuan sword, he could kill him on the spot. After killing him, there was nothing to worry about. But for some reason, the sense of crisis still lingered in his heart. It could be seen that there were other masters hiding around. Because of this, he did not act rashly. When he was hesitating whether to send a message to Nalan Wuxia, a cold voice suddenly sounded in the air. Sun Xingtian, as the top aristocratic family in Shanghai, you actually colluded with the remnants of the evil sect and harmed these innocent children. Today is the day you die. After the voice sounded, a graceful figure of a woman appeared in front of Sun Xingtian and the black-robed man. This woman was wearing a spotless white dress, which looked particularly conspicuous in the night. Her long hair was tied behind her head and she carried a long sword on her back. She looked like a heroine walking out of a martial arts drama. Her holy temperament was like a female bodhisattva. Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. This woman was the first campus belle of Shanghai Medical College, Feng Wu. Sun Xingtian was shocked and then shouted, "Who are you?" Feng Wu said coldly, "It doesn't matter who I am. Your Sun family helped the evildoer and from today on, your name will be removed from Shanghai. Little girl, you're too arrogant." With the black-robed man by his side, Sun Xingtian seemed to feel confident. He waved to his men next to him and said, "Kill her." As soon as he gave the order, the black-robed men rushed toward Feng Wu with their weapons in their hands. "You're courting death." Feng Wu shouted coldly and waved her sleeves casually. A strong force swept out and those black-robed men of sacrifice were suddenly swept away like fallen leaves in the wind. They fell to the ground one by one and spat out mouthfuls of blood. "Evil remnants of the devil cult, go to hell." Feng Wu shouted coldly again. Then the long sword on her back seemed to have a life of its own. It bounced out and fell into her hand with a ding. This was a golden long sword. It looked a little smaller than the Xian Yuan sword, but the sharp sword light was very similar. Feng Wu shook her wrist and the long sword turned into a golden light and stabbed at the black-robed man's chest. The attack of a level 8 Supreme Power Master was naturally extraordinary. After this sword stabbed out, the surrounding air seemed to be frozen and the sharp sword chi made people breathless. The black-robed man only had the strength of a level 3 Supreme Power Master. He had no ability to resist at all and was about to die on the spot. At this moment, a silver light like a full moon cut through the night sky. It flew over like a meteor and hit the golden sword that Feng Wu had stabbed out. With a crisp clang, the golden sword was knocked away by the full moon and the black-robed man survived. Qin Haodong's sharp eyes had already seen that the full moon was a round scimitar. This scimitar was made in a strange shape and it was a boomerang. After knocking away Feng Wu's golden sword, it flew back and fell into the hands of a young man in his 30s. "Ha ha ha, we just wanted to catch the big fish of the Zihang Sword House. We actually caught the young sword master of the Zihang Sword House." The young man reached out to catch the scimitar that flew back as he spoke. In his other hand, there was also a similar scimitar. It seemed that it was his weapon. And beside the young man stood a coquettish woman. This woman was quite beautiful, but she was too flirtatious. Her revealing clothes could not hide her plump figure at all, and her pair of phoenix eyes seemed to be able to steal people's souls at any time. "Sister Feng Wu, I really didn't expect to meet you here. I'm also very surprised." The woman's voice was so charming that it made people's imagination run wild. After seeing the two people, Qin Haodong's pupils suddenly shrank. These two guys seemed to be laughing, but in fact, they had already reached the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. They were the ones who had brought the sense of crisis just now. These two people had been hiding in the dark. It seemed that they had predicted that someone would come. Feng Wu's expression finally changed a little. Obviously, the appearance of these two people had surprised her. She said, "Bai Rui, Zhou Changkong, the left and right protectors of the Hehuan sect, what are you doing here?" Bai Rui said in a charming voice, "Sister Feng Wu, you're the one who said that. The Sun family is the property of our Hehuan sect in the secular world. Why can't we come here? Chapter 594. Zhou Changkong glanced at Feng Wu greedily and said with a sinister smile, "I've long felt that the people of the Zihang Sword House are secretly watching us, so I came to Shanghai this time to collect new followers for our Hehuan sect and replenish fresh blood. The other is to lure out the people of the Zihang Sword House, but I didn't expect to catch you, the young sword master." Feng Wu frowned. It turned out that the Sun family stealing these children was a trap set by the Hehuan sect for her. Qin Haodong was also secretly glad that he had not rushed out rashly just now. Otherwise, he would have been eaten up by the two level 8 Supreme Power Masters. Bai Rui swayed her sexy body and took 2 steps forward. She said in a sweet voice, "Sister Feng Wu, I think you're pretty. Why don't you come to our Hehuan sect? This is the paradise on earth. At that time, I promise you can find a handsome partner for dual cultivation and live happily for the rest of your life. Why do you have to stay in a place like the Zihang Sword House? There's not even a man there. There's no fun at all." Feng Wu said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense. Today, I'm going to kill the demons and get rid of you 2 scourges for the sake of the world." Bai Rui smiled and said, "Sister Feng Wu, you're so beautiful. Why do you always fight and kill?" Zhou Changkong sneered and said, "Feng Wu, don't think that we don't know your background. Although you're known as a genius of the Zihang Sword House, you're still too young. You're only at the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm now. You're at the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm, and so are we. How can you fight against us? Go to hell." Feng Wu knew very well that since she had fallen into the trap today, she had no choice but to kill her way out. She turned her wrist, and the golden sword in her hand turned into a cold light, directly stabbing at Bai Rui's heart. This golden sword was called the Leimu sword, and it was the treasure of the Zihang Sword House. Bai Rui knew how powerful the Leimu sword was. She stopped smiling, pulled off the pink ribbon from her body, and turned into a long rainbow to meet it. This silk ribbon of hers was also a treasure. She didn't know what material it was made of, but it was extremely tough under the infusion of genuine qi. At the same time, it didn't suffer any force at all. Not only was it not cut off by the Leimu sword, on the contrary, it locked the edge of the sword. At the same time, Zhou Changkong made his move as well. With a shake of his right hand, the boomerang blade whizzed out and headed straight for Feng Wu's face. The long sword in Feng Wu's hand was locked by the ribbon. She tilted her body slightly to the side, dodging the boomerang knife. However, the boomerang knife was really strange. After flying for a short distance, it turned around and flew back, aiming for Feng Wu's neck. Feng Wu infused her genuine qi and rotated her wrist. The Leimu sword shook off the ribbon in Bai Rui's hand. Then she turned around and chopped at the boomerang. Her sword was a precious sword. As long as it hit the boomerang knife, it could be cut into 2 halves. However, the boomerang knife seemed to have a mind of its own. It slid away from one side of the blade and dodged it. At the same time, the other boomerang knife whizzed out and rushed toward Feng Wu's chest. Bai Rui also made a move again. The ribbon in her hand directly rolled up Feng Wu's feet. She and Zhou Changkong practiced the double cultivation method, so they cooperated very well. They attacked and defended well. Moreover, both of them used strange weapons, which made it impossible for others to defend against them. Feng Wu's cultivation had reached the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. If she fought alone, she would even be a little stronger than Bai Rui and Zhou Changkong. However, it was 1 against 2 now. Moreover, the 2 of them were good at joint attacks, so their combat effectiveness was much higher than that of the other 2. Under such circumstances, she was suddenly at a disadvantage. Although her life was not in danger for the time being because of the sharpness of the Leimu sword, she was still forced to retreat and was surrounded by danger. After fighting for more than 10 minutes, Feng Wu's genuine qi was consumed more and more. When she was not paying attention, Zhou Chankong's boomerang knife cut a line of blood on her left shoulder. Fortunately, she dodged in time. This time, it was only a superficial wound. Her muscles and bones were not hurt. Bai Rui smiled and said, "Sister Feng Wu, why did you do this? Such a good skin was cut. I feel sorry for you. Hurry up and join our Hehuan sect. How nice it would be if we could all be happy." Zhou Changkong succeeded in one move. He smiled proudly and said, "Yes, as long as you join our Hehuan sect, I can be your guide. I guarantee that your first time will be comfortable. You won't feel any pain at all. Shameless people, go to hell." Feng Wu was furious. She waved the Leimu's sword up and down in her hand and barely managed to turn the tide. However, her anger was only temporary. It could not change the comparison of strength. As time went by, Zhou Chankong's boomerang knife cut a line of blood on her right buttocks. At the same time, her white dress was cut open. Bai Rui and Zhou Changkong not only cooperated well, but they were also experienced and knew how to distract their opponents. Zhou Changkong smiled lewdly and said, "I didn't expect the young master of the Zihang sword house to have such a white butt. If I could touch it, it would be worth it even if I died." Bai Rui also giggled and said, "Sister Feng Wu, such a good butt was cut. I feel sorry for you. If other men saw it, they would feel sorry for you." Feng Wu was so angry that she almost went crazy. However, she lost control of her mind and her moves became more and more chaotic. The situation became more and more passive. Not only did she not have any chance to win, but it was also extremely difficult for her to escape. Qin Haodong used another invisibility talisman and watched anxiously. He wanted to help, but the three of them were all at the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. With his cultivation of the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm, even if he helped, he would not be of much help. He would be killed in a few moves. If he wanted to help Feng Wu, he could only secretly wait for an opportunity. He had to wait for Bai Rui and Zhou Changkong to relax their vigilance. There was only one chance. If he missed, it would be completely over. After fighting for another 5 or 6 minutes, Feng Wu's body was cut a few more times. She was now in a dangerous situation and had no time to stop the bleeding. The large amount of blood made her pale and dizzy. Seeing that the two protectors of his sect had won, Sun Xingtian breathed a sigh of relief. If the news of today's fight was spread by Feng Wu, the Sun family would really be finished. Bai Rui and Zhou Changkong looked proud. At this time, they had already won. Whether they killed or captured Feng Wu alive, they would make a great contribution to the Hehuan sect and would definitely be rewarded. However, the two of them were extremely experienced and were not in a hurry to take action. They knew how terrible the dying strike of a level 8 Supreme Power Realm Master was. Even if they did not die, they would be seriously injured. They blocked all of Feng Wu's escape routes and continued to wear down her strength. Bai Rui smiled again and said, "Sister Feng Wu, why did you do this? You've ruined such a good skin. With your appearance and figure, if you come to our Hehuan sect, there will be countless strong men lining up to pamper you. At that time, you will know how happy it is to be a woman. *tch, I'll kill you." Feng Wu was also very smart. At this time, she had already seen through their intentions. The Leimu sword in her hand glowed with golden light and stabbed at Bai Rui's heart with all her strength. She did not care about the two boomerangs behind her. Bai Rui was shocked. She did not expect that Feng Wu would use a fighting method so soon. In the face of the murderous Leimu sword, she did not dare to be careless. She waved the ribbon in her hand and wrapped it. Seeing the situation in front of him, Qin Haodong was delighted. The opportunity he had been waiting for a long time had finally come. He first locked the two boomerangs with his primordial spirit, and then put them into the divine ring with a thought. Then he controlled the Xianyuan sword to hide in the thousands of golden lights released by the Leimu sword and shot it by Rui's chest. Because the sword light released by Feng Wu was too bright and Qin Haodong was always invisible, Bai Rui did not notice that there was a sword in the sword light. The Xianyuan sword and the Leimu sword, the two swords, stabbed at Bai Rui's heart together. But at this moment, a strange scene happened. After the addition of the Xianyuan sword, the Leimu sword unexpectedly made an excited cry, as if attracted by a magnet. The two swords banged together and merged into a huge golden sword. Then the sword light shone brightly, more than 10 times stronger than before. Qin Haodong was stunned. He did not know how the two swords could be combined into one. Bai Rui was controlling the pink ribbon in her hand to resist the Leimu sword. The ribbon in her hand was also a treasure spiritual weapon called 10 meters Mortal World, which was made of the silk of exotic silkworms. In the fight just now, she had tested it many times. The 10 meters Mortal World was enough to block the Leimu sword in Feng Wu's hand, so she was full of confidence this time. But she never dreamed that the Xianyuan sword would appear out of nowhere, and it was even combined with the Leimu sword. Its power was more than 10 times stronger than before. The 10 feet of Mortal World in her hand couldn't block the sword at all and was directly split into 2 pieces. When she found it, it was too late to hide. The sword light all over the sky gathered together and finally disappeared into her chest. Ah! Bai Rui let out a shrill scream. A fist-sized bloody hole was directly cut in her towering chest. Even her heart was crushed into powder by the fierce sword qi. Even though she was a level 8 supreme power master, she could not survive. Zhou Changkong and Bai Rui used the joint attack technique and were controlling the two boomerangs to attack Feng Wu. But they did not expect that the saber would suddenly disappear, as if it had never appeared. What's going on? Where is my saber? He was shocked and looked around for his boomerangs, but he did not find them. Instead, he saw Bai Rui killed by a sword. Rui! Seeing that Bai Rui was dead, he cried out in pain. Although the two looked young, they were actually over 60 years old. They had been cultivating together for more than 40 years. Seeing that their companion was dead, they were immediately heartbroken. After killing Bai Rui, Qin Haodong found that the big sword was still listening to his command. He did not stop and directly controlled the flying sword to cut Zhou Changkong's head. Zhou Changkong's cultivation was based on the two boomerangs. At this time, without the weapons, his cultivation was greatly reduced. In a daze, he was cut in half by the sword. Blood spurted out, and his body fell to the ground. Chapter 595. The moment the Xianyuan sword appeared, Feng Wu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She gave up controlling the Leimu sword and stood there like a wax statue, muttering, "The Xianyuan sword finally appeared." After killing Zhou Changkong, Qin Haodong turned around and saw that Feng Wu was still in a daze. He hurriedly shouted, "Don't just stand there. Hurry up." Only then did Feng Wu come to her senses. She stretched out her hand and the Leimu sword flew back to her hand with a sound. Then she slashed at the black-robed man. However, she had missed the best time to take action while she was in a daze. The black-robed man turned into a cloud of black mist and quickly drifted away. Soon, he disappeared in the night sky without a trace. Feng Wu felt that it was a pity. She directly turned the Leimu sword in her hand to the disciples of the Acacia sect next to her. These people only had the cultivation of covert power. They had no ability to resist in front of a level 8 supreme power master. In the blink of an eye, they were all killed. Qin Haodong did not stay idle either. He put all the men of sacrifice of the Sun family to the ground. Sun Xingtian had been standing aside and watching the battle. In his opinion, the outcome was already decided when the two protectors took action. No one expected that Qin Haodong would appear out of nowhere and kill the two protectors in an instant. The black-robed man ran away faster than a rabbit, leaving him alone here. Looking at the dead and injured people of the Acacia sect and the men of sacrifice of the Sun family lying on the ground, he was so scared that he fell to the ground. He no longer had the prestige of the former master of the Sun family. Now, he knew that the situation was over and the Sun family was completely finished. After killing all these people, Feng Wu directly came to Qin Haodong and said respectfully, "Feng Wu greets the sacred master." Qin Haodong was startled. He looked back and found no one else around him. He hurriedly said, "Senior Feng Wu, are you okay?" "You're wrong. How could I be the sacred master?" While speaking, he looked at Feng Wu and thought to himself, she didn't hurt her head just now. Why did she start talking nonsense? Feng Wu said, "Sacred master, Feng Wu is not wrong. The one who holds the Xianyuan sword house is the sacred master of the Zihang sword house." Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. After confirming that Feng Wu was not joking, he asked, "Sister Feng Wu, do you know this sword?" Feng Wu said, "Since the Xianyuan sword is the sacred lord's sword, Feng Wu certainly knows it. The sacred lord's sword and the Leimu sword in my hand are a pair. Even if I'm wrong, the Leimu sword won't be wrong." "Well," Qin Haodong said, "the Xianyuan sword is the sacred master of the sacred master of the Leimu sword house." Feng Wu said, "The holy sword has a spirit. Since the Xianyuan sword recognizes you as its master, you are the sacred master of the Zihang sword house." What's going on?" Just as Qin Haodong was about to clarify the matter, a burst of sirens rang out. Dozens of police cars rushed in from outside, and then countless policemen jumped out of the cars and surrounded the place. The leader was Dong Bicheng, the director of the Shanghai Public Security Bureau. Behind him were Nalan Wuxia and the captains of the crime squad of several other districts. Dong Bicheng looked at the blood and corpses on the ground. He came to Qin Haodong and asked seriously, "Little Qin, what's going on?" Before Qin Haodong could speak, Feng Wu took out a sign and handed it to Dong Bicheng. "Come with me." Dong Bicheng's expression changed drastically when he saw the sign. He followed Feng Wu to a quiet corner. Nalan Wuxia came to Qin Haodong and asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Qin Haodong smiled and said, "I'm fine. You guys came pretty fast." It turned out that Qin Haodong had sent a message to Nalan Wuxia before he took action, telling her that the missing children were in the Sun family and asking her to bring enough people. Nalan Wuxia looked at the tragic scene and said, "What's going on? Why did the Sun family steal so many children?" Qin Haodong said, "I heard that it has something to do with an evil sect called the Hehuan sect, and the Sun family is a secular force supported by the Hehuan sect. They help them do evil things. I don't know much about the details, but this time the Sun family is really finished." At this time, Feng Wu had finished explaining things to Dong Bicheng. She came back and said to Qin Haodong, "Director Dong will handle everything here. Let's go." Qin Haodong said goodbye to Nalan Wuxia and then left with Feng Wu. After getting in the car, he asked, "Senior Sister Feng Wu, how are your injuries?" "Sacred Master, don't call me Senior Sister. Just call me Feng Wu." Feng Wu said respectfully, "My injuries are all superficial. They didn't hurt my muscles and bones. I just lost a lot of blood. I just need to find a place to deal with it." Qin Haodong said, "Let's go to my house. I'm a doctor. I'll help you deal with your injuries." "Okay, Sacred Master. I'll make things clear to you." Qin Haodong said, "Don't always call me Sacred Master. It makes people think that I'm an old monster. Just call me Haodong." Feng Wu said respectfully, "I don't dare. If my master finds out, he will punish me according to the sect rules." Qin Haodong shook his head helplessly. Such a beautiful girl turned out to be stubborn. What era are we in now? If you call me that, others will think that we're mentally ill. Anyway, you're my senior sister. Just call me Haodong. Feng Wu hesitated for a moment and said, I can call you Haodong in front of others, but I still have to call you Sacred Master when there's no one around. Whatever you want. Qin Haodong really didn't know how the Zihang Sword House brainwashed Feng Wu, but since she insisted, there was nothing he could do. What token did you show Dong Biqing just now? Feng Wu said, it's the token of the Shenyuan Pavilion. I'm an elder of the Shenyuan Pavilion. It's the Shenyuan Pavilion's arrangement that I came to the Shanghai Medical College this time. As early as a few years ago, we found signs of the Devil Gate's activities in Shanghai, so we sent me here to find out the truth. I didn't expect that the Sun family was actually a force cultivated by the Hehuan sect of the Devil Gate. So you're a member of the Shenyuan Pavilion, and you're also an elder. Qin Haodong said jokingly, I'm also a member of the Shenyuan Pavilion, but I'm a guest elder. I'm still a little inferior to you. Feng Wu said, the master of the Shenyuan Pavilion is my master, and you're the sacred master of the Zihang Sword House. In this way, the entire Shenyuan Pavilion will listen to your orders. This is too complicated. Let's talk about it later. I'll make a phone call first. Qin Haodong took out his mobile phone and dialed Zhou Jieluan's number. It was already midnight. Old Master Zhou had just fallen asleep when he was woken up by the phone ringing. However, he rarely gave this phone to others. Since it rang, it meant that something big had happened. He glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Qin Haodong calling. He immediately pressed the answer button. Little guy, it's so late. Shouldn't you call Xinju? Why are you looking for me? Qin Haodong said, Old Master, as you wish, the Sun family has fallen. Hurry up and call all the people of the Zhou family. Get ready to grab some benefits. The earlier you do it, the more benefits you can get. The Sun family would definitely be removed from Shanghai after such a big incident. However, as a top family in Shanghai, their industry was also extremely huge. After their fall, they would definitely be crazily nibbled away by other forces. Hearing this news, Zhou Jieluan sat up from the bed and cried, Really? You're not joking with me, are you? Qin Haodong said, Old Master, you said it yourself. Even if I were to joke at this time, it would be to find a beautiful woman. I wouldn't joke with you. That's great. I didn't expect that I would live to see this day. Old Master Zhou was so excited that he almost jumped up. At this moment, he was no longer sleepy. It had always been his lifelong wish to become the biggest family in Shanghai. It was a pity that there were 3 families in the past, and he could not see any hope. However, since this young man came to Shanghai, everything became a reality. First, the Zheng family fell, and now the Sun family fell. So in the future, Shanghai would belong to the Zhou family. However, he also knew how all this came about. Even if they became the biggest family in Shanghai in the future, they could never provoke Qin Haodong. Otherwise, the Zheng family and the Sun family would be their example. After hanging up the phone, he immediately called the housekeeper in, and then called all the core members of the Zhou family. They held an emergency meeting that night. The next morning, they began to crazily eat the big cake that was the Sun family. After making the phone call, Qin Haodong took Feng Wu back to his room. First, he took a dress from Lin Momo and changed Feng Wu's bloody dress. Then, he began to treat her injuries. There were more than a dozen knife wounds on Feng Wu's body, all caused by Zhou Chankong's boomerang knife. Fortunately, they were all superficial wounds and did not hurt the muscles and bones. After applying Qin Haodong's unique golden sore medicine, the scabs quickly fell off. Not even a scar was left. The only thing that was a little embarrassing was the 2 wounds on her lower abdomen and buttocks. It was a little awkward to treat them, but Feng Wu looked natural and graceful without any shyness. After the wounds were treated, the two took a shower and then returned to the room. Feng Wu said, "Sacred Master, can you tell me how you got the Xian Yuan sword?" "Yes." Qin Haodong told her how he got the Xian Yuan sword and how he broke the strange seal. Feng Wu said, "No wonder that Cihang's sword house has not found any news about the Xian Yuan sword for thousands of years. It turns out that it was sealed. But who sealed the divine sword? I don't know. That seal is extremely strange. I've never seen such a strange seal." Qin Haodong said, "Tell me, what's going on with the Cihang sword house? What does it have to do with the Xian Yuan sword? Let me tell you the origin of the Cihang sword house first." Feng Wu said, "The first sword master of the Cihang sword house was called Dini. Everyone knows that she founded the Cihang sword house, but they don't know that it was all arranged by Dini's teacher, Leimu." "Leimu?" Qin Haodong said, "Are you talking about the wife of the Yellow Emperor?" Feng Wu nodded and said, "Everyone knows that Leimu is the wife of the Yellow Emperor. She is virtuous and motherly, and she created silkworm breeding and weaving. But they don't know that she is actually a martial arts master and the Yellow Emperor's dual cultivation partner." Chapter 596. Qin Haodong said, "You mean Leimu asked her disciple, Dini, to create the Cihang sword house? With her identity and status at that time, there was no need for her to do so. What was her purpose?" Feng Wu said, "It's a long story, and the cause is very complicated. In the Battle of Zhulu, the Yellow Emperor killed Qi Yu with the Xianyuan sword and cut off his head. This is a history that everyone knows. But what people don't know is that after this battle, the Yellow Emperor also disappeared, including his Xianyuan sword. There is no trace of him and his sword." Qin Haodong said, "According to folklore, didn't the Yellow Emperor marry 3,000 women and then ascend? It's all folklore. In fact, there is no such thing at all. Although monogamy was not practiced at that time, the Yellow Emperor only had 4 wives. How could he have a harem of 3,000? Feng Wu said, "According to the records of our Cihang sword house, after the Battle of Zhulu, the Yellow Emperor suddenly disappeared, and there was no news of him since. As the official wife of the Yellow Emperor, Leimu sent many people to look for the whereabouts of the Yellow Emperor, but there was still no news. Leimu was an extremely infatuated woman. She did not give up. She asked Dini to create the Cihang sword house for 2 reasons. One was to find the whereabouts of the Yellow Emperor, and the other was to fight against the Devil Gate and protect the people of Wuxia." Qin Haodong asked, "Fight against the Devil Gate? What kind of organization is the Devil Gate?" Feng Wu said, "Qi Yu was killed by the Yellow Emperor in Zhulu, but his wife and subordinates were still there. They always wanted to avenge Qi Yu, but they couldn't find the Yellow Emperor. In the end, they killed the Yan Huang tribe in Huaxia." Qin Haodong said in surprise, "Qi Yu had a wife? There is no record of this in the history books." "There is, but there is very little information, so you didn't pay attention. I once saw a record like this in a book. Qi Yu chased after the Yellow Emperor and fought on the shores of Zhulu's Little Law. There were no beasts left in the 9 corners, and the 5 inner regions were desolated. The Red Emperor was shocked and said to the Yellow Emperor. He executed Qi Yu and killed him in Zhongji. The Yao Li mentioned in this record was Qi Yu's wife. According to the records of the Cihang sword house, she was a very powerful woman whose cultivation was not inferior to Leimu's. Moreover, she did not disappear after Qi Yu's death. Instead, she led the Jiuli tribe to launch a crazy revenge against the Yellow Emperor's Xianyuan tribe. However, under the leadership of Leimu, the Xianyuan tribe launched a counterattack. Both sides suffered losses, and Yao Li didn't gain any advantage. Yao Li was an extremely vengeful woman. She was unwilling to let go just like that, so she created the demon sect and wanted her descendants to take revenge on the Xianyuan clan for generations to come. In order to deal with the revenge of the Dark Gate, Lei Mu founded the Zihang Sword House. The two sides have been fighting like this for thousands of years. Qin Haodong was quite shocked. He didn't expect that there was such a struggle behind the civilized society. He said, "Is the Hehuan sect we met today the Dark Gate?" Feng Wu shook her head and said, "The Hehuan sect is not the Dark Gate. It's just a subordinate sect of the Dark Gate. After thousands of years of development, the Dark Gate has become extremely powerful. Although they have changed countless sect masters, every sect master is called Yaoli. This has not changed. Under the sect master, there are 8 sect protector elders, 4 sect heavenly kings, and the left and right inspectors. These people are all high-level members of the Dark Gate. There are 7 sects under them, namely the 5 Poison sect, the Hehuan sect, the Skeleton sect, the Yinfu sect, the Maihun sect, the Black Witch sect, and the Beast-controlling sect. Bai Rui and Zhou Changkong are just 2 protectors of the Hehuan sect." Qin Haodong took a deep breath and said, "So powerful. The 2 protectors of the Hehuan sect are already at the 8th level of the supreme power realm. How high are the cultivation of the sect master of the Dark Gate, the sect protector elders, and the heavenly kings?" Feng Wu said, "The cultivation of the sect master of the Dark Gate is unfathomable. He is at least at the Saint Realm. However, the Dark Gate and the Zihang Sword House haven't fought head-on for many years, so the specific cultivation is not clear. According to past experience, the cultivation of the sect master of the Zihang Sword House should be on par. As for the 8 sect protector elders, 4 sect heavenly kings, and the left and right inspectors, they are a little weaker. They are basically at the 9th level of the supreme power realm. The sect masters of our 7 subordinate sects are also at this level. My God, are they so powerful?" Qin Haodong was still shocked by the strength of the Dark Gate. "Not to mention our sect master, just the level 9 supreme power realm is enough to compete with those aristocratic families in the capital." He originally thought that the martial arts on Earth had declined, but he didn't expect it to be so powerful. It seemed that he didn't notice this before because he was just an ordinary person at that time and had no access to this circle at all. Feng Wu said, "The strength of the Dark Gate is indeed very strong, and they have been hiding in the dark. This time, they found traces of the Dark Gate, so the Xianyuan Pavilion sent me to check. I have been hiding in Shanghai for a long time and slowly found some clues about the activities of the Dark Gate, but I didn't expect that the Hehuan sect would set such a trap. Fortunately, the Sacred Master arrived today. Otherwise, I might have been killed." Qin Haodong said, "Since the strength of the Dark Gate is so powerful, the Zihang Sword House is not bad, is it?" Feng Wu said proudly, "Of course. In addition to the unfathomable cultivation of the Zihang Sword House, there are 8 great elders, 12 holy swordsmen, and 5 sect masters of the hidden sections. Each of them is at the 9th level of the supreme power realm. Otherwise, how could they compete with the Dark Gate? It's just that they rarely come out if the Dark Gate doesn't come out, so not many people know about it." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "By the way, you haven't made it clear yet. How did I become the sacred master of the Zihang Sword House?" Feng Wu said, "This is the first rule set by Lei Mu at the beginning of the establishment of the Zihang Sword House. The person who holds the Xianyuan sword is the sacred master of the Zihang Sword House. All the disciples of the Sword House must obey the orders of the sacred master." Qin Haodong said, "Isn't this rule a little inappropriate? What if the Xianyuan sword falls into the hands of the evil sects? For example, if it falls into the hands of someone from the Dark Gate, do you also have to recognize them as your master?" Feng Wu shook her head and said, "That's impossible. Lei Mu and Emperor Huang Xianyuan are a pair of dual cultivation partners. They know each other's cultivation methods very well, and they also know that the Xianyuan sword has a spirit. Even if it falls into the hands of the evil sects, it can't be recognized as its master." Qin Haodong thought for a moment and said, "What if someone tries to control the Zihang sword with a fake sword?" Feng Wu said, that's unlikely. Only the core disciples of the sect know the secret of the Xian Yuan sword. Others don't know this rule of the Zihang sword house. Besides, even if someone knows it, it doesn't matter. The Xian Yuan sword can't be forged. Even if we can't recognize it with our naked eyes, the Leimu sword in my hand can recognize it. They are originally a pair of male and female swords. A fake sword can never complete the combination of the two swords. Oh. Qin Haodong nodded. At the same time, he was secretly happy that he had become the sacred master of the Zihang sword house by accident, which meant that he had an extremely powerful force in his hands. He asked, I heard from Bai Rui that there are no male disciples in the Zihang sword house. Is that true? Feng Wu said, he's right. Leimu practiced the dual cultivation method with the Yellow Emperor, so the cultivation method she passed down was only suitable for women. Therefore, there are naturally no male disciples in the Zihang sword house. Because of this, the disciples of the Zihang sword house can't marry outside except for the descendants of the Yellow Emperor. Qin Haodong was shocked and asked, this rule is unreasonable, isn't it? Does it mean that if I can't find someone who practices the Yellow Emperor's cultivation method, I can't get married for the rest of my life? It's not a question of whether it's reasonable or not. Feng Wu blushed and said, because of the cultivation method, if the female disciples of the Zihang sword house have sex with a man who doesn't practice the Yellow Emperor's cultivation method, not only will they kill the man, but they will also explode and die. This can't be helped. Isn't this a little too tragic? Qin Haodong said, have the female disciples of the Zihang sword house never found a man for so many years? Feng Wu shook her head and said, no. Qin Haodong covered his forehead and said, this is really a pain in the ass cultivation method. No wonder Feng Wu was known as the first campus belle in the school, but she didn't accept any man's pursuit. It turned out that it was not only because she was cold, but also because of this reason. Feng Wu hesitated for a moment and said with a red face, and there is a rule in the sect that the Holy Virgin of each generation will have a marriage contract with the sacred master. Once she becomes the Holy Virgin, she will not marry anyone except the sacred master. Ah! There is such a rule. Qin Haodong was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that he was now the sacred master of the Zihang sword house. Didn't that mean that he had already been engaged? And this time was not short. It was set 5,000 years ago, which could be applied for the Guinness Book of Records. Feng Wu lowered her head and said softly, yes. Qin Haodong asked, is there any Holy Virgin of the Zihang sword house now? Feng Wu's cheeks became redder and redder. Of course, because the Holy Virgin is the successor of the next sword master. Qin Haodong asked, who is she? How old is she this year? Is she beautiful? Is she in good shape? Qin Haodong threw out a series of questions about his child's marriage. Feng Wu lowered her head more and more, and her delicate skin seemed to be dripping blood. She said in a low voice, I am the Holy Virgin of this generation. Qin Haodong was speechless. This marriage had fallen from the sky, and they had met so soon. Suddenly, he realized a problem and said, it doesn't seem possible. Although I have been recognized by the Shenyuan sword, I don't know the Yellow Emperor's cultivation method. Doesn't this mean that our marriage is invalid? Feng Wu said, Leimu and the Yellow Emperor are both wise men from thousands of years ago. Of course, they won't let this happen. The cultivation method of our Zihang sword house is hidden in the Leimu sword, and the Yellow Emperor's Shenyuan divine skill is hidden in the Shenyuan sword. Really? Why didn't I find it? Qin Haodong reached out and the Shenyuan sword appeared in his palm. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.